corruption, defeating the ends of justice and dealing in gold. Police spokesperson Adele Mayberg says the anti-gang unit found cash on the illegal miner at the Potchefstroom Correctional Centre before link could be made to Sinyato.
The inmate resurfaced from Buffelsfontein shaft number 11, but the gold amalgam he had in his possession could not be detected. He was then charged for illegal mining and detained at Stilfontein Police Station, where he declared the gold amalgam to the sergeant. The member allegedly offered to assist the inmate to sell the gold and buy him clothes and groceries. After the purchases, Sinyato handed the remaining cash, which is believed to be the proceeds of dealing in gold, to the illegal miner.
Advocacy group Pay the Grants has welcomed the Social Security Agency SASSA's extension of the deadline for the change from gold to black post bank cards from the 28th of this month to the 20th of next month. Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi and Social Development Minister Nokuzola Dolashe announced the extension in a joint statement. Mobile officers will be dispatched to rural areas to assist beneficiaries. The upgrade comes with new security features to help protect South Africa's 3.5 million beneficiaries from fraudsters. The campaign's deputy chairperson Elizabeth Reiters.
This is not a first postponement, but it is much needed. It's actually still short, as we at least expected a 3-month extension, so beneficiaries can actually go and apply for the card. When it started last year, September, the department actually guaranteed that beneficiaries won't have to rush to exchange the card, that they will still receive their grants into the SASSA Gold cards. It's only last week when SASSA actually changed and gave a deadline. So I do think we need more time.
A convicted Russian money launderer has arrived back in Moscow as part of a prisoner exchange with the United States. Alexander Vinnik was returned to Russia in a deal which saw the release of the American Mark Fogel. The BBC's Paul Moss has the details.
Alexander Vinnik ran a multi-billion-dollar cryptocurrency exchange, which prosecutors said was used by criminals around the world to transfer and store their cash. The American Mark Fogel, by contrast, was convicted in Russia for possessing medical cannabis. It had been prescribed by a doctor, but both are now back in their home countries as a result of a swap, one which the White House says shows the improved diplomatic relations between the two countries. Russian television showed Mr. Vinnik hugging his mother. He said he wanted to thank everyone, but above all, Vladimir Putin.
Recapping the top story, alleged child porn suspect Darren Wilkin and his partner have been denied bail by the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg. I am Mondela Mbara for SFM News headlines at 3:30.
Coming up in your sports this hour, 56 players invited to Springboks alignment camp and ICC increased Champions Trophy prize money. I'll have more on this and other sports stories at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Mangaung Metro Municipality is hosting an investment summit to bring investment to Bloemfontein. The summit will take place on 19 and 20 February at the City Hall and aims to bring together different economic role players from across the country and abroad. To be part of the summit or for more info, call 073 184 8972 or send an email to summit@mangaung.co.za. Mangaung, at the heart of it all.
'Cause I'm your lady.
On this special day of love, SAFM wishes you all a happy Valentine's Day. Whether you're celebrating with someone special or embracing self-love, let's make today a day of kindness, joy and connection. Happy Valentine's Day from all of us at SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Okay, let's talk. Let's talk TV licenses. Did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about legalities? It helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. That means more epic dramas, exciting sports, and news that keeps us all informed. So, when was the last time you checked yours? Visit TVLIC. That's TVLIC, the acronym for TV licenses, right? TVLIC.coza, and make sure you're up to date. After all, it's your screen, your story. Hashtag your screen, your story.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Certainly enjoyed listening to Bridget earlier on, and I think when she was done, she said, "That's it." I said, "Any meetings after 3?" Like, no, that's it. It's the weekend, but it's certainly not the weekend for all of us as yet. Bridget did say, however, that she's sure that we will talk about Duduzile Zuma Sambudla. So why should we disappoint her if that's the case? Let's talk about that. That comes up first up. But there's more as well as part of the Global Watch. We'll touch on the issues of the African Union Summit that's underway right now in Ethiopia. And then you may have heard about it. Lerato Mataboche, now elected the new AU Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy. We will chat to her in the feature we called Winning. And very important, the issues about water in the greater Johannesburg region. People are really, I have to say, people are hurtful. They really are. And there seems to be like, don't worry, we're going to send a tanker for you, as if that will solve the problem. So it is a crisis. Anyway, is there another way to look at it? We'll chat to Bulelani Ngbebele about just that, about what is the actual solution around it. And then after 5, you know, we have the Fireside Chat every Friday from 5 to 6. And today my guest on the Fireside Chat is Baleka Mbete, the former Deputy President and former Speaker of the National Assembly. I'm looking forward to connecting with her, and you know what? You can join us as well. It is the National Pulse. Right, first things first. Oh yes, 086 000 2032. Make a note of that, and then send us a WhatsApp, text or voice note message 0614 104 107. Right, let's get then to the issue of the MK party. So yesterday we spoke about it extensively, not just what may or may not be happening with Dr. John Klophead, together with his issues that may or may not happen about a threat to his future. Who knows who's undermining him and who's not? We really don't know. That's the one side of it, right? And I'm talking about that issue with Mzwanile Manye, right? But we don't really know whether many people believe it's true. On the other hand, the issue of Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, as well as Floyd Shivambu. Now, you know, we chatted about this, that in fact that apology from her side was an apology to the MK party, but certainly not to the Secretary General. Well, surprise, surprise, late yesterday, another apology letter was delivered, and in fact, in that apology, the Secretary General was mentioned. So what does that mean now? Who prompted who to do just that? Tobani Zikalala is with us, independent political analyst. Tobani, appreciate you connecting here on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your SAFM listeners.
Thank you.
Good to speak to you.
So what do you make of this, first apology and now second apology? And in the midst of all of that, the sense that something's going wrong within the MK party?
Ashraf, there's an organizational chaos in the MK party. There seems to be a lot. Part of it is a crisis of formation, right? The party is still new. Everyone is on the power trip, on a power struggle. And because some people believe that they came in early and others joined later, some people feel more entitled to power than others. So it's necessary just that. What you see from the outburst of Duduzile Sambudla and of course the subsequent apologies, what you see is that she may be a mouthpiece of a particular group or particular strand inside the party, which feels aggrieved and the fact that maybe it's being sidelined as new people join, as they believe that they joined early. Those power struggles over the control of the party, the direction of the party, are almost natural if you look at the fact that the party is still new. It's still going through its formation stages. But also, on the other hand, they're unfortunate because then it seems as if the party, after almost 2 years, has not grown, right, up above some of all these things. But then the question then begs, will the party be able to get its affairs in line going into the next election?
Okay, so here's the one narrative. The one narrative is that in this case, Duduzile Zuma and Floyd Shivambu do not see eye to eye, or she doesn't see eye to eye with him, and she wants him out, to the point there's a building up of forces within the MK party to try and remove him completely. In fact, a lot of speculation about that a couple of days ago. The other was that, never mind what she thinks, that on the one hand, that she's got the support of her father, and a significant support at that. Then you get the apology yesterday. Now, there's no way, based upon what has happened so far, she would not have an apology if it was not a case of somebody nudging her on, right? Who do you think that could have been?
I think, of course, I mean, there is that assumption that because she's close to her father, because the father is the president, therefore she holds particular power, and some of her actions are supported by her father. But if you look, I mean, at the letters that came out before the apologies, and the fact that the apologies, when it first came out, it almost directed itself to the president of the party, which is her father. And then now, the next letter comes and it's directed now to the leadership of the party, and in particular the Secretary General. It seems as if the so-called ultimate support that maybe she thought she had with her father does not exist up to that level. Not that her father maybe doesn't support her, but maybe her father doesn't support her bringing the party to disrepute and causing further divisions in the party. And I think for me there is far more than the simplistic idea that the breakers are just between Floyd and Duduzile Sambudla. I would agree, of course, with the narrative that says there is a building of forces inside the party, and these are evident that whatever we see from Duduzile is just a mouthpiece or a mirror of a deeper crisis in terms of the building of different forces inside the party over the control of the party and its directions. This doesn't look very well good for the party, especially from where it is and the position it holds. I mean, it's the official opposition party in South Africa, the official opposition in KwaZulu-Natal and other provinces. It has done very well in its first maiden election. If it is not solidified properly in terms of how it's organized, going into the next election, it will suffer very, very much, because if you've seen how they've suffered defeats, I mean, in by-elections, and also, and in many in wards where they had dominated in the national general elections, they are now suffering because the organizing towards the local government elections is a different ball game. There needs to be much more finesse, organization, and that cannot happen if they are still fighting amongst each other.
I mean, that's a good point. Now, the actual apology, I just want to break it up. Do you find that apology, if we take it at face value, is now an acceptable apology compared to what? I'm not saying should Floyd accept it. I'm saying, is it an acceptable apology compared to the one that even I felt was certainly not acceptable, because he never mentioned the Secretary General?
I think the second apology sounds more acceptable. It's much more reflective of what transpired and where she may have gone wrong, and her acknowledgement of such of such actions. I mean, the first letter was simply just, for me, a compliance with what the father demanded, if you look at how it was framed, because it was then framed just to the president of the party. But if you look at the second one, it seems that it responds much more to the issue at hand and to the people who are affected. So I would agree that there is something that happened between the first and the second letter. There is something that happened. One suspicion is that maybe the father got through to her, in terms, of course, also managing the public image of the party and making sure that the party is able to salvage that public image.
Okay. What do you think then needs to be happening next? We spoke yesterday at length about, whether the party will sort of jettison off into different pieces or not. I mean, first of all, do you think that's possible or not?
I mean, at the moment, the crisis they are facing now is just that now it becomes much more pronounced. They've almost faced this thing since the beginning that they started. That there have been people pulling on different different directions, people thinking that they hold particular powers, and everyone wanting to have a particular influence on the party. So the idea that the party could could be broken in different parts, I don't think that's possible. But will the party be able to be stable And that's the question I think we can't answer on with certainty, but I am concerned about that. I'm concerned with a party that almost every other week there is something that coming out of it in terms of, and the party that is so compatible with discussing its affairs in public. I mean, if you look at how many of its members just go on public, whether on whatever podcast or whatever news platform to speak about the internal affairs of the party, whether it's a social media post or not, the party seems to have a much more deeper crisis than they would like us to believe. Of course, currently the glue that holds all of them together is the president of the party, but in terms of where they are, they do not seem to be pulling in the same direction, and that will mean the party will not be stable and may not do well in the next elections.
Okay, what about, you made the point of that, whether the party will hold. So what does it take, in your opinion, what would it take for the party to actually hold going into that next local election and beyond?
I think the first thing is that the party must have frank conversations amongst each other and internally about the stand of the party, where it stands, what is the current situation, and what are the current issues faced inside the party. I don't think the party has had a real conversation. I mean, I don't want to say a conference because everyone will then start thinking about the idea of being an elective conference. But there needs to be a conference that speaks about, or meetings that speak about the issues in the party and how they get resolved, and the establishment of clear political mechanisms inside the party to deal with such issues. Because at the moment what you have is that anyone believes that they hold the divine rights to be the ones who are dealing with the issues and to speak on those issues. That for me is problematic. You need to have a party that has clear systems in place, and of course, if you organize properly, you don't need to go on public platforms and have outbursts. You will know that inside the party there are particular mechanisms. They seem to be very eager to involve the media and involve the public in their own internal affairs. That must be kept very soon, because it seems that everything that happens inside the party we get to know about it. Whereas in other parties we take time, it takes long for us to hear about the brewing situation. In the MK party, something happens today, tomorrow it's in the public. That says something about what is how the upper party is organized. Everyone feels they are entitled because everyone feels they are a bigger member than everyone. That also needs to be curtailed by building an organization. Currently, it's a mobilized force of people who are mobilized around the idea of Jacob Zuma, because they have not accepted that, yes, all of them came because of the call of Jacob Zuma, but they have now exist in an organization that it must have policies, they must have a clear political program, and that way they should become more loyal to.
Okay, just a quick answer, then I'll let you go. You said people are commenting, but Floyd Shivambu hasn't said anything. Is that the right approach?
I think that Floyd doesn't need to comment in public about it. There's nothing. If the apology has been complied with, if there's any other issues, he must address them inside the party. And of course, also in the Secretary General, he has all the power and the mechanism in place to be able to speak to membership of the party. He does not need to say anything in public because he had not said anything up until now.
Okay, that's where we will leave it. Tobani Zikalala, who's an independent political analyst, talking about the MK party and the internal wars playing out externally and apologies and all of that has effectively been centre stage this past week. This is the National Pulse.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers. This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So there's a message from Imzo from Pinetown saying Ashraf Duduzile Zuma should be fired by her father before it's too late. She is so disrespectful to those who voted MK Party. Right, it's Global Watch now as we look at issues that affect the globe and the continent as well. And nothing dominates the headlines now, not more than what's happening regarding the African Union, because the AU summit is underway in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, in fact. So I just want to check if we can connect to Sophie. Sometimes we have a problem because there could just be a connectivity problem. Rest assured, we will connect with her pretty soon. Let's get to some of the other comments around some of the issues. Here's one.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's Andrew from Butterworth. Ashraf, you should have brought Tessa Dooms to comment on this MK issue. Because last time when she commented, she looked like she was a member of the MK. I would have really wanted to hear what she was going to say about this going on now. Because last time it looked like there was nothing going on there when she commented. Bring Tessa Dooms so that we can hear what she's saying this time.
Well, I mean, okay, she said what she said. I mean, our job, obviously, is to get a reflection of different analysts, and that's why we've had, her the other day. We had two different ones yesterday. We've got a fourth one today. But I take your point. I mean, she did say that their initial response, she felt, was very politically mature. I remember that was the words that she used. Thanks for that contribution. Right, there's more to come. Let's hear this.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Trevor here from the Eastern Cape. Ashraf, you know what is wrong in South Africa except for the massive amount of corruption that's taking place? We have politicians that is so far-fetched from what we are living on the ground, you understand? They get huge amount of salaries, they get houses for free, cars for free, they don't pay for electricity, neither for water, yet they are still involved in doing tenders. That is one of South Africa's biggest problems. If we can sort it out, we can sort out South Africa. Thank you.
Thanks for that. But I mean, you know what? You've said that before. And I'm not saying don't bring it up. But I think what would be great if you can look at a very specific angle of just a blanket corruption like everybody's doing it, because everybody's not doing so. There are people who are doing it and they've been taken to task and others have not been taken to task. And the president, and I'm not here to bat for him, has this can't be allowed to continue. So maybe if you want to focus on a specific area, I think it'll be just great if you do that. Okay, there's more. There's more about Floyd and Indlozi and the MK Party and everything else too.
Afternoon, Ashraf, SAFM listeners. Marumo Momahike. Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi's comments about President Cyril Ramaphosa now of late, those are the comment of someone who's looking for employment. Now I don't believe when he says he wants to change his career from politics to something else. I don't believe him. I don't know what. I don't want to say, yes, I believe 100%. He's looking for employment, that guy. And he will soon be called by the ANC to go and work. I'm telling you, watch this space, Ashraf. Marumo Mahike.
Well, we're going to hold this clip and keep it forever and see what happens. By the way, he's now just taken up a new position as a talk show host on another radio station. I'm talking about Indlozi. So he's got his employment, by the way, right? Now, talking about the African Union Summit, yes, we've been battling to get hold of Sophie, but in the meantime, our president, Ramaphosa, has been talking about the AU Summit, and this is what he says.
Meeting of the Assembly of the African Union is extremely important, particularly at this point in time when there are so many issues to be addressed and challenges, particularly conflicts on our continent. West Africa is going through a challenging time as well, with coups that have happened in a number of countries. The Sudan is going through enormous challenges, with many people who have died and been displaced, and when there is a civil war raging. And we here in Southern Africa are also going through a most challenging conflict in the DRC, where fortunately we are seeking always to restore peace and ensure that there's security. Our forces are still in the DRC, and the ceasefire that we've been calling for, we hope that it will take hold and be consolidated so that our forces can come back home. And tonight we have mourned and in a way celebrated the lives of the 14 soldiers that we lost. And I had the opportunity to meet the families and comforted them, but also told them that their sons have not died in vain because they were serving a noble cause, and a cause that we as South Africa have been involved in for many years to ensure that there's peace on our continent and that there's security. So we are committed to continue serving, but at the same time we want to make sure that there is peace on our continent. So our mission is peace and to ensure that there is security on the African continent. So as we go to the African Union meeting, we will be going to spread the word of peace and security. And of course, we are going to elect a new chairman of the African Union Commission. And we're also hoping that a few South Africans that were fielded for other positions will also be elected.
Okay, let's see what comes out of that. There's further comments, obviously, about Duduzile. Let's pick it up.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. You see, with the MK party, which means it's clear that the problem is that Duduzile Sambudla Zuma, Jacob Zuma's daughter. I just read a letter from someone who purported as himself as the private secretary of the party, lambasting Duduzile Zuma and her actions inside the party. She acts like she's the firstborn in that party and everything stops with her. So I don't think they'll go with that tendency, because I think even the second apologies, you just mentioned the secretary there, Floyd, and the other entities like the parliament and Pan-African Parliament. Actually, she's not apologetic, that one. She's just doing it for Ubabu Zuma. In Flexoff.
I mean, I hear you. Is she really doing it just for, as you said, Ubaba, because of the leader or the father of the party in that case, or not? But I mean, the fact is, she did now apologize. We know that for a fact. But she didn't do before, not to the Secretary General.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf, I think the SIU should investigate this deal between Kenny Kunene and this Tabak guy from KZN. He says he went all over like South Africa. He couldn't find a company with the buses, so the only person who could help is his friend, which is this Tabak guy. Do you mean all over South Africa there's no person or company that owns bus except his friend? I think they should investigate. Something is dodgy with this tenor of these buses. And the other things, why do policemen and policewomen kill like their partners like this? I was reading now like this police woman from JMPD who killed his police husband. You see these things of the insurance and the policemen who are busy like murdering their partners. It's too much now.
Well, I don't know the story on both issues, but yeah, I think that's certainly the one about Kunene will be investigated. And the policemen, well, I really can't explain it. There's just so many, and you're quite right about that, okay? By the way, send out the WhatsApps. Try and keep it to 30 seconds. It really allows us to play many more people, and therefore share their voices on air as opposed to one or two long ones, and we can't really do that. Okay, let's get to the news headlines. It's just gone 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines on SAFM, I am Onda Lambana, and a very good afternoon. Government has vowed to unite and recognize the voice of the Khoi and San community. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velengosini Hlabisa has opened the 3-day all-inclusive national convention for the Khoi San leaders underway in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. Alleged child porn suspect Darren Wilken and his partner have been denied bail by the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg, and Hamas has released a list of hostages it will free tomorrow in accordance with the terms of the ceasefire with Israel. The announcement follows intense efforts by Egyptian and Qatari mediators to keep last month's US-backed agreement on a track. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Heavy start to drive time across Gauteng. A vehicle, a small truck, is overturned, coming from Midrand into Joburg. It's happened just before Buccleuch. That has pushed traffic back through Allendale and back towards the New Road exit. We've had some roadworks today on the N1 going south towards William Mandela, so that stays slow from Buccleuch. And a crash on the R24, ramping onto the R21 north towards Ford Tracker Road. The backlog there down towards the Barber Road exit. And Joburg's N3 between Galulis and Helden is looking fairly slow. Breakdown on the M1 north around Buerta Avenue, so some queuing pressure there. And also there's just been a crash in that area. It's on the R21 between Almapius and the M1 highway, so some delays on your way to Pretoria on the R21 as well. Busy condition around that part of the nation's capital. Crossing to Durban, we've got a breakdown N2 south before KwaMashu, so it's very heavy. Backlogs coming through from Gateway. Some additional roadworks today popped up on the N2 north at Westwood Mall, so that's heavy from the M7. The M4 Southern Freeway, as you come off the N2 into Merebank, that's quite slow. And a crash on the M13 before Old Main Road, heavy from Maytime, heading up towards the Hillcrest area. And Cape Town, all fairly busy, particularly if you're on the N2 outbound. There's some roadworks underway today, just on the side of the N2 at Muway, closing the shoulder lane. It's pushing a queue right back past the airport to Robert Sobukwe. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, to me, our very own Minister of Sport. I haven't said that for about a couple of weeks, by the way. But you still are, anyway, without a title. Right, let's talk about the Springboks.
Yes, let's talk all things Springboks. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has invited a group of 56 domestic players to a 3-day alignment camp in Cape Town next month. The camp will have 2 gymnasium sessions and a series of boardroom meetings to get the players up to speed on the requirements and expected standards for the season. Then Erasmus and his support staff will also host virtual alignment camps with overseas-based players, a group of talented youngsters and injured players plying their trade domestically who are not invited to this camp. Meanwhile, the Vodacom Bulls have made changes to their side ahead of the United Rugby Challenge match against the Sharks at Loftus tomorrow. Cameron Hanekom is rested with Nizam Carr named at the back of the scrum. Marco Verstappen replaces Marcel Coetzee at open side flank, while Reinhard Ludwig remains at blindside, and he's going to lead the team. And the other change of the pack, Ruan Vermaak returns to the second row. And remember, the Bulls are currently third on the URC log, 5 points ahead of the 4th placed Sharks. Meanwhile, in football, Orlando Pirates coach Jose Rivero believes that it's still early to focus solely on the title race. It's been over 13 years since Orlando Pirates last secured a treble, and this season presents a significant opportunity for them to achieve this feat. Now, Pirates have already won the MTN 8 title and remain strong contenders for 3 major trophies: the league title, the CAF Champions League title, and the Nedbank Cup title. In the league, they are currently 9 points behind Sundowns with 2 games in hand.
Well played, but I don't do it. I mean, I don't speak about health of my players. It's something that belongs to a private space, and the moments that the club feels that it's the time to speak about which players are injured, how long it's going to take, in which moment of the process they do it. It's not part of my job description.
Well, Pirates face Baroka FC, a side that has been regarded a giant-killing team tomorrow in the Nedbank Cup round of 16. And we'll tell you a bit more about the preview of that game in the next hour. Elsewhere, the Real Madrid embroiled in a battle of European survival. Osasuna are hoping to capitalize when the La Liga leaders visit tomorrow. Carlo Ancelotti's side leading Atletico Madrid by a point and Barcelona by 2 at the top of the table face a tough test at Al Sada. In September, Osasuna romped to a 4-2 victory over Barcelona, inflicting what was the Catalans' first league defeat of the season. And right now, they are all set to face Real Madrid. In cricket, the ICC have increased the prize money of the Champions Trophy starting in Pakistan next week by 53%. The winners of the tournament are set to pocket around $2.24 million, which is around 40 million rand, while while the runners-up are going to walk away with $1.12 million, which is around 20.7 million rand. And perhaps for more relevancy to the Proteas is that each group stage win at the Champions Trophy will guarantee a sum of $34,000. That's 628,000 rands. And we're really hoping that the Proteas do well in the Champions Trophy, which starts next week. In Netball South Africa President Cecilia Molokwane says that they are now shifting full focus to the baby Proteas build-up to the 2025 Netball World Youth Cup. This comes after they joined tour the Proteas to Jamaica last month before the senior team went on to the runners-up finish behind hosts England at the Vitality Nations Cup on Sunday. And Molokwane has confirmed that the association have already lined up a few matches for Coach Precious Mthembu's team before heading to the World Cup in September. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now.
So what does the winners get, the overall? I'm talking
at the Champions Trophy.
Yeah, the overall winner.
The overall winner will walk away with $2.24 million. That's 40 million rand.
So that's not bad, because Sundowns, we spoke about the other day, got 90 million just to compete, right?
900 million.
No, sorry. I must keep quiet. I just thought, okay, that's not bad. Cricket is narrowing the gap against football. No, okay.
Still far.
900, I still can't get over it. 900 million rands
just
to
for
qualify. But they will say quite rightfully, and I'm being serious, they didn't just qualify. To qualify, you had to win your league title. So it's like going to a doctor or a surgeon and say, "Are you charging me 3,000 rands for like 15 minutes?" He said, "Actually, it's not 50 minutes of work. It's actually 30 years of work that got me to where I am." I can say the same thing for the sports anchor and the talk show host too. Just saying, right? More sport in an hour.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We in the eye care industry, we're saving over 1,200 rand a month. To all the business owners, you've got nothing to lose by giving OUTsurance a chance to quote on your business insurance. It's true to say that you always get something out with OUTsurance.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, racing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward. Just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So just to tell you, and I know water is a problem around the country, and I did say yesterday we need to pay attention to some of the other big urgent water problems that many people around this country faces. But Joburg, when the big city has a problem, is like, what is it? When the big city catches a cold, sneezes, everybody else catches a cold too, right? So Joburg, we know many people know water, and people are furious, calling. I know the mayor, Dada Morero, is doing a site visit to some of the reservoirs today. Just to tell you, he's going to be our guest Monday, 4:10. Listen out for that. Dada Morero, the mayor of Joburg, our guest. And of course, we will talk about the water issues and maybe the call for the leadership to be dissolved as well. The other thing you need to know, the Friday fireside chat We've got somebody who's very much been involved in leadership, Baleka Mbete, remember her? The former Deputy President and former Speaker of the National Assembly. Well, she joined me 5 to 6, and you can join us too. Right, let's get on to another issue about, we always like to feature winners, right? And I can tell you now, Lerato Mataboge is winning, absolutely. So let's say hi to you first, Lerato. Hi.
Hi, hello Ashraf and your listeners.
Good, I'm good indeed.
All the way from Addis Ababa.
I gather, but we are thrilled to talk to you because we're saying we want to focus on, winners, champions, best in class or best in space, and you're certainly that person. So I understand that you are now the newly appointed, elected AU Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy. So let me say this on behalf of the entire National Pulse team. Well done to you.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. I get sworn in tomorrow, so it's quite a big achievement, not only for myself personally, but for the country as well.
Well, interesting you say that. I mean, not only for yourself and the country, because I often make the link to say, you know what, when you win, South Africa wins, and when South Africa wins, you win, and that interconnected circle is just so important, right? I take it that will be part of your thinking even tomorrow when you finally get inaugurated, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's I stood as a Pan-African candidate. I was advancing a Pan-African vision, but of course, I was propelled by my own country. And tomorrow when I stand having received the mandate from the continent for us to get the work done. I think we got 41 votes out of 49. So
Okay.
I mean, that was a resounding vote of confidence in us. So we got elected really with a resounding majority as South Africa. So we take the task very seriously, and we'll deliver for the entire continent.
Well, fabulous. Now, we talked to you as well, I think, on the eve of the appointment of the AU president as well, but that's another conversation, which just get me thinking about you. So what does the AU Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy do?
As a start, the AU, what it is, it's an institution that sets norms, standards, rules, laws, as it were, for the continent. And the Commission does the day-to-day administration of that process. So what we do then is that when it comes to the policies of the continent vis-a-vis infrastructure development and energy, and ICT, in fact, so the silent responsibility in the title is also the fact that I'll be responsible for the continent's ICT and digital strategy. So we oversee that. We work together with regional economic communities and member states to ensure that we achieve, Agenda 2063 priorities. And mine will be to make sure that the priority that says we must integrate, we must accelerate infrastructure provision, we must electrify the continent, that I make sure that that gets done in real terms, not just on paper, but practically there are projects that we drive. So it's quite a big task. It's really administering development for the continent.
I mean, you did say you got about 41 out of 49 votes or so, so you certainly convinced many, many people. What do you think convinced them to give you the nod?
I believe what convinced them two things. Well, the vision we articulated, and I'll take you through that just now, but also the fact that it's South Africa. South Africa put her hand up and said we can do the work. And I think as a country, we do have a track record of contributing to the continent's development. We've got quite a number of our MNCs, multinationals investing on the continent. Our own foreign policy posture is really pro the continent. So that was one of the key factors. I think the continent is ready to accelerate implementation. And I think we are a trustworthy partner in that regard when it comes to actual investment and trade. South Africa, vis-a-vis the continent, has proven herself to be quite solid. So that's the one. Also, one of the dynamics that also gave me courage was I realized that the continent is actually ready for new type of leadership. I'm the youngest elected commissioner, which is a bit shocking because I think we could go younger, but I think there was also a need for diversity. There was a need for, for a fresh voice, for a new a new perspective, as it were. And of course, the vision that we articulated, I think at the heart of what we committed to doing is to driving the Pan-African agenda to development, is to prioritizing cross-border investments. And we were quite specific about cross-border infrastructure development, as it were. We were quite specific about where that would be. We were quite clear about prioritizing the provision of energy and dealing with energy poverty. So and that resonated, because we took different regions and different countries through what the plan is to assist. I mean, the Sahel region, Central Africa, for example, the majority of the zero electrification problem is in that region. So we have to have a plan for electrifying that region. And then for the other regions, is about how do we work together to drive the renewable energy agenda, but being mindful that we need to preserve policy space for development. So that resonated, because one thing South Africa does very well is knowing how to preserve policy space for development. It may be uncomfortable in certain instances, but we do that well. We do have a track record.
And I
of
mean,
doing that.
in terms of your pitch, therefore, have you answered part of it as well, or is there more that you want to say in terms of your pitch and your vision that you shared with them?
What I'm going to do coming into the role, I think, we've been given the mandate. I think what is going to be important now is the conversations I'll be having with different member states and regional economic communities to actually understand their own flagships that I'll be supporting them on. I think we articulated a vision that got us into the role, and we will certainly execute that vision. But the one thing that we know is that we cannot be going to run a South African agenda. We're going to go and deliver on a Pan-African agenda, and that also entails sitting down with our RECs, whether it's SADC, ECOWAS, EAC, and different heads of states that are champions of infrastructure, to find alignment with them. Two key things that we are committed to doing, though, that we were not going to change, that were part of our pitch, was accelerating resource mobilization. So we're going to spend a lot of work mobilizing resources for infrastructure. Ashraf. Two, we're quite clear about also amplifying African localization in infrastructure projects. We have to have, companies that are African, from different parts of the continent, participating in delivering on infrastructure. I think we import a lot of the services, we import a lot of construction skills, etc. And we are also, when you talk localization, we're also saying we want to see African financing as well in a lot of these projects, so that we supplement with partner finances versus the other way around.
So, and are you convinced that you can do that in terms of, like, by Africa, of Africa, for Africa? Notwithstanding the fact that
Absolutely.
we are living in a world of multilateralism anyway, so you can't absolutely cut yourself off from others too.
No, we are certainly not cutting out our external partners, but we are saying let's consolidate the resources that we have on the continent and bring them to bear on our infrastructure. And I'm confident we can do that, because the ecosystem of financing in Africa, it's there. It's about us coordinating then those resources. We've got quite solid, developmental banks, DFIs, on the continent, from north to south. Whether we're talking Development Bank of Southern Africa, we're talking Africa Exim Bank, AFDB, etc. So an individual country resources that are there. So the question is, how do we tap into those and make them a sizable enough pot to then be deployed to infrastructure development? So. And we are getting a lot of support for that, because also AUDA NAPAD as an institution is looking into that. So it's about us putting our hands together and making sure that we coordinate better. I think the African issue now is not the lack of policies, it's not a lack of institutions. It's really a coordination issue. So we are saying let's do that, and let's do that.
It's a good point. You got 30 seconds to answer this. I mean, just on the policy. I mean, I was moderating at the Intra-Africa Free Trade Summit in Egypt, I think a year and a bit ago, and of course, Afrexim Bank played a huge role in that. But you're right, a lot of conversation there was about we need to work together, but we can't have that same conversation in 10 years' time to say we need to work together. We need to absolutely get things done. So here's a quick one from you. You've got 10 seconds to answer this one. What for you is your greatest concern as a potential impediment for you to achieving your goals?
The biggest concern is to make sure that whatever we agree to gets domesticated at national levels. I think infrastructure occurs literally at the most foundational level in communities, in cities, and so one of the biggest issues.
Okay.
Well, it's not even just an impediment; it's an opportunity.
All
is
right,
to
I
make
got
sure
that. That's where we're gonna leave it. Lerato Mataboge,
Thank
best
you so
wishes
much.
in your big role.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Okay, let's get to some of your thoughts. Seppo in Vleurhof, go for it.
How are you, man?
Yeah, good. What do you want to raise, Seppo?
Ashraf, man, I'm phoning with an issue of water. We've been going up and down with COJ with a query that emanates from 2016. We've been billed for 3 water meters that are not ours.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2018, we sent a correct water meter telling COJ that this is our water meter. So it took them 4 years until they rectified the statement and put the correct water meter there. Yesterday, they sent people to come and contractors to come and remove our bulk water meter, and we are paying almost 90,000 every month from the incept of or from the time we moved into the complex in 2015. We've been paying. We are asking them one question, guys: how much are we owing, and on which water meter have you guys been charging us? We don't have answers. The only thing that we see is threatening letters. Now they've handed us over to debt collectors. Yesterday they sent people to come and remove the meter, but we paid end of February.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
January.
So what can you do about it? I mean, I'm just trying to think about what's your next step now.
We went to COJ today. No one is willing to help us. Even now we don't have water. We don't know who to talk to. The guys,
but there must be somebody that you
yesterday,
can speak to. How can you have no one talking to you?
The guys at the front desk, they say no. We need to make an arrangement of what amount, how much are we owing?
Yeah, but that arrangement, I think that gets done at credit control. So if you say you want to make an arrangement, then that's what you do.
The issue here is they say we are owing them, but it's on an incorrect water meters. We were asking them how much are we owing you and on which water meter, because on the statement the water meters that are there, the numbers that are there, it's not our water meter.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do is, again, we can't really get an answer today, but let's get Keys to keep your number, okay, and let's see if we can maybe follow up on your behalf. I can't promise you. I'm saying we will try and see what we can do, okay, but it won't be solved today. I don't really know, and I'm really sorry about that, Seppo. It's very, very frustrating. I gather that, absolutely. Sydney in the Northern Cape. Hello, Sydney. In fact, we'll get to Sydney in just a second. Sorry. Let's, however, get to some of the issues we spoke about earlier on, including that apology letter.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, can you confirm the letter of apology written by the Zuma daughter? It looks like it was not signed. So is it true that letter has no signature? The letter of apology.
I can check it up now that you tell me, but I'll tell you what.
If that is true, can we really safely say that really that apology comes from her? But it's also a sign of disrespect if the letter is not signed.
Well, I don't know. The original one from the MK party to her, threatening her, was done on an unsigned letterhead by the president himself. Then it was shared on their social media platforms. So once it's shared by them, then it effectively is theirs. Now, the same thing is applied here. It's on their letterhead, shared by them. But Zuma's was also not signed. The president's was also not signed. So, but it confirms with their names. I'm quite happy to think that it's been shared extensively, and I think most people would say that's exactly, because she hasn't contested it, has she? Otherwise, she would say, no, that's not my stuff. She has not said that.
Good day, Ashraf. Yeah, no, it's quite clear that there are problems in the MK, and they are not new. Since the formation of the party, we've been experiencing very hard and worse problems than these. And the one thing for sure about MK, it thrives on its problems, or the problems that it faces. I can assure you that we'll come out of this very strong and stronger. And 2029 will be the date. We're taking back this country.
Okay, that's another comment. Right, let me do this. We'll pick up some of the other calls. There's concerns about the Ukraine war.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Emmanuel Mtola in Durban. And I'm just worried about the Ukraine, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I think Trump should not stop assisting Ukraine in the fight against Russia aggression. Because I hear that Donald Trump is surrendering to Russia. I think Donald Trump should send a troop to Ukraine. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. If you look at what Donald Trump is doing, he's chummies with the Russian president. So make of that what you will, right? Then there's an issue in the DRC. Let's get another comment on that.
Yeah, this is better. Can someone please explain why the ECOWAS and SADC, all of them, they are trying to solve the mission in DRC, but the president himself, Tshisekedi, none of the meetings has he ever attended? Why? So all these presidents, they are using taxpayers' monies trying to solve a certain country of a person who is not even attending. Can someone give us an answer? Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Which president are you referring to? I didn't quite get that. But I mean, if you're saying that's one, there's many meetings they have, and sometimes they attend, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do them via Zoom. I don't know if we are in a position to say they're not interested. I think everybody's very interested in making things happen. By the way, we'll talk about solving the problems of Joburg Water in a moment. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Government vows to recognize the voice of the Khoisan community, and KZN Health Department confirms hand, foot and mouth disease outbreak. For SFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Government has vowed to unite and recognize the voice of the Khoi and San community. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velengosini Hlabisa has opened the 3-day all-inclusive national convention for the Khoisan leaders underway in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The meeting brought together different communities including the Griqua, the Cape Khoi, the Korana and Nama and the San communities from across the country. Hlabisa says the 3-day gathering has 3 main objectives, which among others seek to unite the Khoisan community and ensure that they fully participate in matters affecting them.
Why are we here? We want to have one voice for the Khoi and San community. Secondly, when we live here, we must ensure that we leave the doors open, that issues of the Khoi and San community will be engaged. And thirdly, this gathering must mark the process that will result to the full recognition of the Khoi and San community as the legitimate community in South Africa.
The KwaZulu-Natal Health Department has confirmed an outbreak of hand, foot and mouth disease at 9 learning facilities in the north of Durban. The first 6 cases were reported about a week ago, and the number of infected children has since risen to 36. It is unrelated to foot and mouth disease that occurs among farm animals. The virus is passed on between people through direct contact or droplets from the mouth or nose. The American Mayo Clinic, non-profit organization that focuses on education and research on health matters, describes hand, foot and mouth disease as a usually mild viral infection occurring among young children. The affected schools are in Phoenix, Greenwood Park and Umhlanga. Dries Liebenberg reports.
In a statement, the KwaZulu-Natal Health Department has called for calm after confirming the outbreak of hand, foot and mouth disease at 9 schools in the north of Durban. It says sick children should be sent home for the duration of the infection. Symptoms include fever, a sore throat, small blisters on the inside of the mouth, on the side of the tongue, palms and soles of the feet. Teachers are advised to keep windows open, encourage hand washing, avoiding the sharing of items among children, like utensils and toys, and regularly cleaning surfaces. I am Dries Liebenberg for SABC News in Durban.
Alleged child porn suspect Darren Wilken and his partner have been denied bail by the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg. The pair face multiple charges, including 24 counts of money laundering, possession and distribution of child pornography, and contravention of the Drug Trafficking Act. Wilken was arrested on the 17th of January. His co-accused and girlfriend Tiona Moodley was arrested a week later. This after an FBI-led investigation uncovered an estimated 10 million videos and images of child pornography. Magistrate Pravina Rugnadan handed down the judgment.
I am of the view that the applicants failed to discharge the onus placed on them to show in a balance of probabilities that circumstances exist which, in the interest of justice, warrants them both for their release on bail. Applicant 1 and 2, please stand up. Your bail is accordingly denied. You remain in custody.
Multiple murder-accused Enoch Ndo was screaming and praying in court as Judge Tokomelani Chidada is delivering judgment against him. Judge Chidada is delivering judgment in the Thohoyandou High Court sitting at Waterval Magistrate Court outside Louis Trichardt in Limpopo. Ndo stands accused of shooting and killing 7 family members at Jimmy Jones Village near Malamulelo on Christmas Day in 2021.
One 9-year-old survived the ordeal since he was found unharmed. Transportation of the corpse affidavit by the mortuary personnel in terms of section 212, subsection 7, receiving identification of the corpse were also attached. Exhibit H to L confirmed the similar process conducted on the deceased body of Ndiwo Douglas Ndo. The post-mortem examination in this case was conducted by Dr. Geetha Vijayan. He reported the cause of death to be a head injury due to a gunshot.
Hamas has released a list of hostages it will free tomorrow in accordance with the terms of the ceasefire with Israel. The announcement follows intense efforts by Egyptian and Qatari mediators to keep last month's US-backed agreement on track. Hamas had earlier threatened not to release more hostages after it accused Israel of violating the terms of the ceasefire by blocking aid from entering Gaza, drawing counter threats of a resumption of fighting from Israel. A statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says Israel accepts the list. Recapping the top story, government has vowed to unite and recognize the voice of the Khoi and San community. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velingosini Hlabisa has opened the 3-day all-inclusive national convention for the Khoi San leaders underway in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. I am Ondila Barafa, SAFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sour Pirates shift focus to Nedbank Cup and Bok kickoff 2025 with Cape Town Alignment Camp. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. We start with the run into Joburg through Midrand, being held up by this small truck that overturned just before Buccleuch. Traffic is very heavy. It's all the way back through to the New Road exit. A crash on the R24 towards the airport as you ramp onto the R21 North. That's a queue from Barbara Road. And roadworks back on the R21 just by the NGen services if you're on your way to the airport. That's quite slow coming through Clayville into Tembisa. And a breakdown between Botha Avenue and the R21. The M1 North heading up to Pretoria backs up from John Foster Drive. Durban's N2, really extreme traffic today between the M7 and Westwood Mall. There's been an additional lane closure in for the roadwork, so very heavy. It looks a bit like it does in the morning time. Major delays between Kloof and Hillcrest. The M13 down towards Old Main Road is heavy, and there's a breakdown before Kwamashu, so very heavy on that run down through the Umhlanga area. Also, if you're on your way to Phoenix or beyond, maybe up to Verulam, there's a crash at Mount Edgecombe holding you up on the M41, just approaching sort of trade centre territory. And Cape Town, the left emergency lane is closed off today by some roadworks machinery on the N2 outbound at Meway. That means a heavy backlog beyond the airport. It's very heavy getting out of town. Then you've got some more queues lining up through Somerset West due to Friday volumes. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Oh, oui, Jessica. I Citroën you. You are my chérie de go. I am your wild track ranger.
What are you doing?
I'm just looking on We Buy Cars' website for what I'm getting you for Valentine's Day.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, they have a nationwide spin and win promotion where you can score a guaranteed prize of up to 10,000 Rand when you purchase a car.
Ooh, now that's romantic.
There's also hundreds of discounted auction vehicles available.
So what are we waiting for?
See you this Valentine's Day weekend at We Buy Cars, the easiest way to buy and sell a car by far.
'Cause I'm your lady.
On this special day of love, SAFM wishes you all a happy Valentine's Day. Whether you're celebrating with someone special or embracing self-love, let's make today a day of kindness, joy, and connection. Happy Valentine's Day from all of us at SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So what for you is moving the National Pulse today? What's the big issue, the one big issue that has got you thinking and you know most impacts the nation? If you have a thought on that, just the one thing that drives the National Pulse today, let me know. 0614 104 107 via WhatsApp, text or voice note. And then 086 000 2032 if you're calling in. You can also tweet us on the X platform, SAFM Radio, and then do tag me, Ashraf Garda. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. Now, one thing that I know for sure, citizens of Joburg, they're only looking at what is that They're all interested in, like, where is the water? That's all they're interested in, is that Grammy song about the water, don't you think? I think we're very interested about that too. Now, I can tell you that the Joburg Mayor, Dada Morero, will be our guest on Monday, and there's no question about it. We will ask him about that too. Yesterday, we chatted to the spokesperson from Joburg Water. She made the point that there was no crisis first up because, in fact, there was a shutdown, a planned maintenance shutdown. Then there was a power failure, which was out of their hands. The bottom line to it, doesn't matter who did what. We've had no water in the city of Johannesburg, in many suburbs, for the better part of about 5 days. And in some other suburbs, it stretches back to even last week. So it's gone to like 9 or 10 days or so. The question is, what do we do? Besides speaking to all of them and making promises, is there a practical solution to all of this? So let's get the opinion of Bulelani Ndebele, who's a civil engineer and associate director at NR Aqua. Bulelani, thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. Well, with the name Aqua at the end suggests you know all about the water. So what, first of all, I suggested yesterday it was a crisis. The spokesperson for Joburg Water said it's not a crisis. Where do you put it?
Sure, Ashraf, we have a crisis in the country. I know we're looking at Johannesburg, and obviously I'm going to be careful here, but we have a crisis in the country. Definitely is a crisis.
A water crisis in the entire country.
Water crisis. If I were to paint a picture for you, Ashraf, we're sitting with a rainfall of 500 millimeters per year, just under that in South Africa, right? That's our source of water, if you remember the whole old water cycle thing. We have issues around non-revenue water in the country. So before we talk about Johannesburg, because I know we want to zoom into that, but we've got challenges around that as well, right? So non-revenue water being the water that we are supposed to be paying for, but we're not paying for that service, if you think about it, right? So water that is lost to leaks, but it's not just leaks. So as a country, we're sitting at a 47% non-revenue water. That is a crisis. And I mean, that's on the public documents. It is a crisis.
So you mean, when you say 40%, you mean half of all the water we've already collected is wasted without it being distributed, and therefore it's not sold. There's nothing. There's a loss of revenue and there's a loss of supply. And I'm happy to talk interchangeably, by the way, between Joburg and the rest of the country. So you're saying that's the case, right?
100%, and that's the case. So we can zone down. If you look at the no drop, and the listeners can go and check that, because it's a public document that is published by the DWS, Department of Water and Sanitation. So if you literally go and look at that document, there is a 2023 report called a no drop. If you remember the story with Cape Town, and we'll get to that, right, in the end of what actually happened for us to go to day zero. If you think about it, Joburg in 2018 had a similar situation. So I'm speaking interchangeably here, but the country as a whole is approaching a day zero situation. So it's there in the reports, just like Eskom. We had the warnings, we had the warning lights. We have the warning lights for water as well. So we are in a crisis. We're sitting at 47% for the non-revenue water for the country and 40% water losses. Now, this is for the entire water balance of the country.
Okay.
That is quite scary.
Absolutely. So when you say we're looking at a day zero scenario, I mean, when could we get to day zero? And just whisper, whisper it, don't shout it out, we'll get people scared.
So look, the main thing, and let me backtrack a little bit here, it's a bit complex because the water network is a bit intricate, right? And we'll get to Rainwater and to the different water boards, the water service authorities, and the policies around that. And there's a reason why I'm touching on that, right? The water boards would supply water to a municipality. The municipality has to supply the water to the residents. Now the challenge here comes in, if you think about it, there's an exchange in custody transfer meters, the meters that basically, in simple terms, without using super technical terms, the point where the Rainwater is paying, where the city of Joburg is paying Rainwater, and the point where we as the residents pay the city, those are custody transfer points. Now, between the first custody transfer point from Rainwater to us, we are sitting at 47% losses. That is a grim picture, Ashraf. It's an issue. It's a huge issue. So our day zero is approaching. Let me not say which day, but it really is.
All right. I'll remember the day when it finally arrives, and I hope it doesn't, right? But there's certainly an element of day zero in the city of Joburg right now. And I think as I talk, people say the same thing in the Vaal, Hammanskraal. I mean, we can mention place after place. But here's the important issue. If we're losing half of our water already, right, before it gets distributed, why is that the case? Meaning, whose problem, whose fault is that?
Yeah. Again, I have to be careful here, but look, there's a plethora of problems, right? And we need to look at that, right? So it's a cause and effect relationship. For one, there's climate change. So let's be honest. I think we're going to speak to the actual issues around the system itself. But in other words, the SIV, what we are getting into the system is becoming less and less. So there are some of the causes. This is population growth. Right? The demand is increasing, but we are not increasing supply. Right? There's also issues around governance of water, which we're going to get into now. Why you're asking we're losing 40% of the water? This is inefficient water distribution systems, right? So if you think about this now, lack of investment, because remember we need to keep up with the growth of the population, right? And yeah, then there's also issues around economic impact that are effects of this. This is what we're feeling now. Environmental impacts, health impacts, and social impacts that we're experiencing now. So the cause, it's a bit of both, right? There's a governance issue here for the water. In other words, on that side, but also us, and I know the listeners might say, okay, this is interesting. We contribute to the non-payment of water as well. It's a difficult topic to have because the cause and effect story,
Yeah, look, most people, and again, when I say city of Joburg, I can say ditto to any other, municipality in the country, right? Most people effectively target the leadership of the country and down at the municipal level to say, well, you see, when we have poor leadership, that's why we're in the mess. That is why they can't deliver water. So we need to get rid of them. I mean, is that a fair assessment of where the problem lies and the call for new leadership to be effective?
No, so that's why I said it is a plethora of challenges that we need to tackle together as a country. One aspect is from a leadership point of view. Yes, I think we all agree from a water conservation, demand management, governance, in other words, policies that speak to awareness campaigns, and all of these things that talk to how can we save water, what are we supposed to do. That's the mandate of the governance structures in terms of awareness. But on the other hand, we as residents also have a mandate. Think about this, Ashraf. If we had an understanding of this, we wouldn't then be using indigent. And I'm going to touch on this because this is a sore point when we're doing analysis that we're picking up. Some people register as indigent customers, for example. And you know what an indigent customer is? 6 kiloliters, you're allowed to use water. That's sort of like free basic water that is from equitable share. In other words, our taxes, right? But that contributes, and this will shock you, the non-revenue portion, 60% of that 47% is from that portion of the indigent side, which is worrisome. So in other words, you have a challenge of people that are opening car washes, using water as well without actually paying for water. And this is causing an issue for the municipalities to then continue supplying the water. If you check the documents, some municipalities are owing a lot of money to the different water boards at the custody transfer points. Yeah,
they certainly are. What about, so let me just zone in on the city of Joburg now specifically. As you know, basically it's a week, maybe even longer. What should they do as a matter of urgency?
Yeah, so water efficiency projects is number one. It's important. I've seen that they've started rolling out some of those projects, which is good as a city of Joburg. So there is something happening. I've seen that COJ is doing some work around that. But yeah, water efficiency is the most important. Then there's water conservation demand management as well from their side. In other words, pressure management, understanding what's it, because we've got aging infrastructure as well, Ashraf. So it's a plethora of challenges here. So you're managing the leaks, but you're also managing the conservation aspect of it and the demand management aspect. Now you're talking about the design, making sure that our designs are up to date and all of that. So I must say to the listeners, and I'm not trying to stand in for City of Joburg here. Luckily, I don't work for City of Joburg, but they are trying. And the next plausible steps, like I said, is your water efficiency programs. We need a lot more of those within COG.
All right, I want to ask you about, private-public participation, considering whatever has been tried in the last year or so is just not working. Let me do that right after this.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers. This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, just wrapping up the conversation with Bulelani Ndebele, was a civil engineer and associate director at NR Aqua, trying to solve our water problems, right? So, Bulelani, when I speak, and I've had many chats with different stakeholders in Joburg, and again, as I said, ditto anywhere else. So you get, City Power blaming Joburg Water blaming Rand Water blaming something else. Then they talk about power failures, and the buck just moves on, and it doesn't really sort it out. And all they can say is like, the good news, we will be sending tankers over to your area soon, as like, that's the great reprieve, and that's it, right? Now, that's clearly not working, right? Is there a need for private-public participation in a way that's never been done before? That means to understand the level of urgency around this in the same way we were urgent about COVID-19 and were therefore very innovative in solving a problem. Is there a way to do that?
Definitely. I think within the Triple PFMA, there are ways. And let me answer this first, Ashraf. The tankers and all of that, with all due respect to everyone that's doing and assisting with that, that is a stopgap measure. It's like putting a bandage on a wound. It doesn't actually solve the problem, right? So the actual real problem is what we have discussed around water efficiency, and the private-public partnership like yesterday needs to happen, Ashraf. I can't stress that much, because the thing is, we're looking at, let me give you an example. Day zero in Cape Town, we were looking at an 83 litre per capita for usage. That's how we had reduced to in terms of usage, right? Mm-hmm. Can I give you a scary number? Right now, we're sitting at 235 litres per capita per day in Johannesburg. In certain parts of Gauteng, it's 300 litres per capita per day. So again, efficiency. In other words, we're using way more water than we actually need to use. And there's a business case, if you look at the non-revenue water components, for the private sector to play in this space, and we've seen it. When the private meets with public in this kind of projects, which then becomes performance-based contracts or performance-based projects, where you have to perform. And I'm not now running away from the old gravy of tenders and all of that, because again, that becomes a whole story, right? But I think the main thing here is private sector coming in with investment into the space. The business case is such that you are losing almost 2.2 billion cubic meters per annum, which you can turn into, if you multiply that by 55 rand per kiloliter for give or take, right? That's almost 121 billion rand, right? So there is a business case for this, and it can actually be solved, and we need to really act very quickly.
Right. Let's end with this. We've run out of time, and I mean literally in terms of water, not just even on the show, right? What's stopping the private-public partnership? What's stopping it happening? Just a quick answer.
Policies. Political interference.
Okay, got that. Bulelani Ndebele, lots to consider coming out of that conversation. Associate Director at NR ACWA. Let's talk to the South African Human Rights Commission after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, there's been a call from the South African Human Rights Commission, their Gauteng Provincial Office, confirming it has received several complaints concerning unplaced learners in Gauteng for the 2025 academic year. They should be in school, but there are many of them who are unplaced. So what happens next, okay? So there's been a call for submissions about just that and maybe a complete inquiry into it, okay? So with me is Zamantungwa Mbeki, the South African Human Rights Commission's Gauteng Provincial Manager. Thank you for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Firstly, how big a problem is this whereby, and I mean the key word here is unplaced, so learners who are supposed to be going to school this year are not in school in Gauteng?
Yes, so it's different categories. We've got learners who are supposed to be going to school and are not, but the bulk of this is people who are going to schools very far from where they should be, and the parents are then incurring additional costs. We then also have another category of these grade 9. If you look at the online system, it caters for grade 1 and grade 8 learners. Mm-hmm. Now, where we're seeing a bulk of the challenges as the placement of the other grades. If you move from Vereeniging, let's say, to Johannesburg, there are a lot of people who are struggling to access the schools. They're being told by the district officers to go apply at the school. The school says go to the district. The district says go back to the school. And then that means that time is being wasted, but also for so many of them, for many parents, they end up just giving up, and then they resort to private schools, which they cannot afford, or online learning. But there have been some cases where the child has had to just stay at home because they just don't have the means.
So what is the problem here? I mean, notwithstanding your point about those who are transferring, in within their school careers, which is a normal thing if migration is allowed, and it is allowed. I mean, people can move all the time, especially the parents, right? What then is the problem here? Where has, let's say, the Gauteng Education Department slipped up?
I think it's quite a big one, and maybe that's why we need the investigation to fully look at it in terms of the department's systems and how it communicates its protocol and policies to different district offices. Because what we have seen when we are trying to deal with it at an individual basis is that there hasn't been a consistent approach. Now, if you look at the Stats SA census from 2022, you'll see that we still have migration, quite a big migration into the province. And what it could potentially mean is that there's not enough or adequate planning to include these people coming from the different provinces to access education or any other socioeconomic rights in the province. And so we lag. We find that learners are going to be placed in March, and then in some instances, the department has had to pay for catch-up classes as a means of rectifying the situation. But what we found is that this is not a streamlined process that anybody has got a clear understanding of. This is what I do when this happens. So maybe the department at head office might say that, this is what you do, go to the district office. But the application based on the complainants that we've received is that there's not a consistent approach, and people are very, very frustrated with the system.
Okay, so therefore your call for submissions, I mean, who are you asking, and then what do you do next?
We want the public to come to us so that we really understand the nuances of the problem. What are the different categories? How are you affected? We've gotten and received complaints from parents who need to access special needs schools and the proximity of those schools to where they are. We've gotten parents who are saying, I'm using the UCT online system. My child is homeschooled. I've got parents who are saying, my child was actually away from school for 6 months. I camped at the school. So those are the stories or the complaints that we want to hear, because it then helps us to feed into the statement or the problem that we are trying to really uncover. But what we know now is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's a very, very complicated system that I think it caters for the bulk, really. But where there are learners who are who are not feeding in or who don't fit into this black and white, they are left on the side.
Okay, and we're on to news time, so very short answer on this one. We're on to news. When you get that information, what happens next?
Then we have our inquiry, and then we will we'll release our report with our recommendations to the GDE on how to better streamline their systems.
Okay, and I hope they look forward to those recommendations with open arms and say we need to implement, which is another conversation. Zaman Tugwa Mbeki, the South African Human Rights Commission's Gauteng Provincial Manager. Appreciate you giving off your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get to the news headlines. Just gone 4:30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, NPO Women and Men Against Child Abuse has welcomed the decision by the Randburg Magistrate Court to deny bail to Darren Wilkin and his girlfriend, Tiona Moodley. Government has vowed to unite and recognize the voice of the Khoi and San community. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velungosini Tlhabisa has opened the 3-day all-inclusive national convention for the Khoi San leaders underway in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. And a U.S. federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to temporarily block a foreign funding freeze that has been in place for weeks. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Roos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a pretty busy Friday, nowhere busier than the run into Joburg. Coming through mid-round, a small truck overturned earlier at Buccleuch interchange, and that has pushed traffic all the way back through New Road. It's very heavy. If you've left Pretoria, you're on way to Joburg. That N1 is super heavy. The side roads like Pretoria, main road, the K101 are all fairly heavily backed as well. Also, crash out at the airport, the R24 onto the R21 north to Voortrekker is quite a heavy delay. There's a backlog of traffic between Clayville and Tembisa on the R21 towards the airport. That is due to roadworks, and there's a breakdown in Friday volumes on the N1 North, just up before Garsfontein, and that's a queue right back to sort of John Foster Drive. A couple of tweets saying it's very heavily backed on that N1 North today. Durban side, now the N2 coming south, there's a breakdown before Kormashu, so that's a heavy queue from almost back as far as Sobaya. There's a crash on the M4 southbound at Lelucia, causing delays both ways, just south of Umhlanga, and the N2 North has an additional lane closure in the Westwood Mall, so it's jam-packed from the M7. M13 Kloof to Hillcrest is very slow today, and Cape Town, the emergency lane on the N2 outbound at Meway is closed to traffic. That's due to some earlier roadworks. Taxis normally scoot through there towards that Meway exit, so they're staying on the carriageway. The N2 outbound is heavy from Hospital Bend all the way up to that Meway exit at Khayelitsha. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, so Tumi, last week this time we were looking ahead to, or the Pirates supporters were looking ahead to the Pirates Sundowns game, and we know Pirates lost. Some other things happened to Sundowns in the week. Where does Pirates go from here?
Well, Pirates now, they're shifting their focus to the Nedbank Cup round of 16, where they're facing Baroka FC at Orlando Stadium tomorrow. And although Bakara are playing in the Motsepe Foundation Championship, Pirates know very well the Limpopo Bay side, because they are the ones who denied the Buccaneers the Telkom Knockout Cup back in 2018, winning the trophy on penalties. So it's not going to be a very easy one for Pirates. In terms of team news, Talent Mbata is an injury doubt, but medical team working around the clock to have him back in action soon, while coach Jose Rivero will hope to have Thabiso Sesane available to return in defense, and no injury concerns on the side of Baroka. Here's Rivero.
The league is a marathon. It's 30 games. I'm gonna tell you a couple of topics, okay, about football, but it's the truth. And there's good teams right now. Teams who are in a good moment of form. And for example, what happened the other day with Galaxy and Sundowns is, for me, is not a surprise. I mean, we all know how difficult it is to go to Mbombela. I think Galaxy, even last season, was the best team in home matches after Sundowns, if I'm not wrong. It's the same. We are playing games every 2 days, every 3 days. Teams like us, teams like Mamelodi. So having a bad day, it's something normal, human, acceptable, and that's the competition itself. Every time we play in games, especially when we play away, we have to, all the big teams and the teams who are, fighting to get this trophy, or whichever trophy, must feel that pressure when we are playing away from home. So I think that having Galaxy in that moment of form, Sekukune as well, it was a terrible game for us to play. Polokwane City, hopefully soon some other teams, is a good news for the league, for the competition, and for our football.
Well, kickoff is at 3 p.m. and tonight Durban City hosts TS Galaxy at 7 p.m. Elsewhere, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says that defender Manuel Akanji will be out of action for 8 to 10 weeks with a muscular injury that will require surgery. The 29-year-old sustained the injury during the Champions League clash against Real Madrid. Meanwhile, Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca believes that his youthful Chelsea side are going in the right direction. Now, the Blues take on Brighton tonight, looking for revenge after being beaten by the Seagulls in the FA Cup last weekend. But in terms of the team Chelsea, they boast the youngest average starting 11 in the Premier League this season, and they sit fourth on the log, ahead of 2 points ahead of both champions Manchester City and Newcastle, with just 14 games left to play for the season. And Maresca says that even though they're going in the right direction, they still need to learn to win games. In cricket, New Zealand restricted Pakistan to 242 all out after 49 overs in the Tri-Nations Trophy final today. Well, O'Rourke led the seam attack, taking 4 wickets, while Mohammad Rizwan top scored with 46. Babar Azam became the joint fastest to 6,000 ODI runs in his 123rd innings. He shares that with Hashim Amla. And the last time I checked, New Zealand was sitting on 76 for 2 in the 17th over, and they need 167 runs in 32 overs to win. In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has invited a group of 56 domestic players to a 3-day alignment camp in Cape Town next month. The camp will have 2 gymnasium sessions and a series of boardroom meetings to get the players up to speed on the requirements and expected standards for the season. Then Erasmus and his support staff will also host virtual alignment camps with overseas-based players, a group of talented youngsters and injured players plying their trade domestically who are not invited to this camp. Finally, in motorsports, Williams have revealed their 2025 Formula One car after recently announcing a major change for the upcoming season. Fans, though, will have to wait a little bit longer to see the car's race livery, which will be revealed during the F1 season launch event on the 18th of February. And Williams team principal James Vowles described the FW47 as an evolution of last season's car, and that car is the second car produced under Vowles' helm as he aims to get the one successful team back to the front in Formula One. On that note, it's a wrap.
As we have another bulletin left, and maybe raise some of the biggest issues that are troubling you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like yesterday. I'll look forward to that. Right, more sport in an hour.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're a sealing and partition company. I like OUTsurance. They have that personal touch. In addition to the great service they give me, they've also saved me and my company 3,266 rand per month. Guys, make that call. It's well worth it.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions, and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bakaga have a different game plan to return to Hamphahlele with happy faces. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC. This Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets with Paswane Mpatlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect as always. So we'll get to local and global news in a moment. But Aveng, they've got some news in the property market, right? Yeah.
Yeah, afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Happy Valentine's to everyone. And looking into the market, Aveng, let's get to that. The guys are reporting that they're still under pressure. They are recording losses. And this is due to some of the projects where they like in Australia and Singapore, that they're creating more costs, things are not going well, delays, and offsetting some of the profits from the projects that are doing well. And this is it's just a worry for investors. It's indicating there's lack of risk management that needs to be improved around even cost controls on infrastructure projects. And yes, there's still some operations in New Zealand and Pacific Islands, Asia, and that remains strong, and they're providing some support in terms of margin and resilience. But overall, is going through distress, and the share dropped by close to 29%, and now it's sitting around 27%, and it's just not good for them right now, and they need to review their works around that. Markets, when you review them to the end of the week, developments are seeing that, we had a re-accelerating inflation, then we had inflation coming down, we had the trade tariffs worries going left and right, delays taking place. And, at the end of the day, looking at today's number, we're seeing dollar basically breaking through the 107 on worries that is going through the U.S. Yields also is below 4.5. And this has generally seen the likes of oil settling at 25.50. Markets are not are taking a cautious read and react, and they say maybe we should buy a bit of stocks and see if we can make some gains in this short-term period with delays happening on the tariff front. And we're seeing with that taking implementations of delays is still good news to take some risk taking. But when you review today's the retail sales coming out of them, it's reflecting some weakness that is coming through. We don't know how long this would take in, but markets are remaining cautious. U.S. equities are now more or less reviewing everything and taking a more cautious approach in everything. Locally, we're supported by these weekly gains. We're seeing there's a positive. We'll take it. And because our major trading partners such as China is looking to stimulate the economy, they're looking to have this symposium coming into next week, which will be severe and it will provide some support. And this type of developments are encouraging the JSE that is exposed to China to trade higher, up 1%, industrials leading 1.9%, with the likes of Naspers and Process leading up above 6%, encouraging that taking as they try front running. Resources are up 0.8%, we'll take it, as the commodities are still positive. Financials are lagging there, waiting it out when we've got a budget speech coming on to next week, so everything is still a wait and see, down 0.1%. Gold is likely down 0.1%, around $2,925 an ounce. It's not a bad takeaway because it's still floating with the all-time highs, and we're going into a weekend where there's still geopolitical tensions, where we see between the Middle East and finding some middle ground and moving forward. There's still Russia is still in the background, but despite this uncertainty, investors are looking forward into the market. U.S. is seeing it open flat, and Nasdaq S&P down flat. Nasdaq, the Dow was down 0.1. So it's a lot of wait and see. Let's see this. Which direction are we taking? Europe, DAX, FTSE were down 0.3. Tech is up 0.3. And when we look at our currency space, we're benefiting from some of these uncertainties that are taking place. China also playing us a good role there. And we're sitting at 18.31, almost 1% of strength. Rand against the euro is at 19.22. Rand against the pound is at 23.10. So investors are all about, let's see what next week has for us, and hopefully it is for the better.
Well, we certainly hope so. Hopefully for the better. Thank you for that, Paswane. Right. There's an important issue around SASSA cards for the better after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We'll be chatting to Baleka Mbete coming up after 5 as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. Looking out for that, right? But let's talk about SASSA cards. You know, there's been some changes. There were some concerns. We've had people calling in about last-minute changes. Where are we with that right now? With me is Kwena Moloto, the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, the Ministry spokesperson there. Kwena, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting with us.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners.
Right, so tell me about this deadline extended regarding the SASSA cards. What's happened? What's the plan?
So the department, in conjunction with the Department of Social Development, started this process in early September. A shift from the SASSA Gold cards to the Postbank Black cards. This was largely due to security issues with the SASSA Gold cards. We saw a very slow uptake inside September to December, January, but as the February deadline started to approach, there's been a massive uptake that we've seen at the 200 sites that we have around the country where beneficiaries can do this change. Which has led to quite lengthy queues over the past few days at our sites. And so the Minister of Communications and Digital Technology, as well as the Minister of Social Development, agreed that in order to ensure that we don't leave any beneficiaries behind, that the date gets extended to the 20th of March, and so that date has been extended. A war room has been set up where we get daily updates on the progress that's being made at the various sites, because this is obviously a very emotional situation for many. There's millions of South Africans that rely on their grants to put food on the table.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that we handle the situation with that humanness element in mind.
So just lastly, what then happens after the 20th of March?
So after the 20th of March, the SASSA Gold cards will stop working. We, however, have tried to communicate as best as possible in order to ease fears, that in no way is that taking away anyone's grant. Everyone's grant will continue being paid to them. The only thing is that the SASSA Gold card will no longer work at shops and at ATMs, and beneficiaries will need to access their funds at a Postbank office. But in no way does this mean that beneficiaries' money is being taken from them. Their grant is their grant, and we want to stress that. And we really just ask that as many people come out over the next 6 weeks to ensure that we get this process
okay, we've got that.
over and done with.
Point taken. It's a matter of urgency. They must get this transfer sorted out. Thanks for that, Kwena Moloto, the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, the Ministry spokesperson there. Much appreciate your time. Right, so we've got the former Deputy President and former Speaker of the National Assembly, Baleka Mbete, coming up after 5 o'clock as the fireside chat. Lots of things we'll talk about, some fun, some serious. It's her journey. But before that, let's up the audience engagement.
Defending champions are eager to display a top-class brand of football to emphasize why they are Wienerkusen, while the Bavarians are confident this is their season. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the Battle of Giants, Bayer Leverkusen FC versus Bayern München FC on Saturday, 15 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, I'll get your calls. I'll listen to your voice notes. I'll pick out some of your text messages too. Lorraine in Durban, we're going to start with you. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good
And
indeed. Go for
hello
it.
to your listeners
Thank you.
well.
Thank you.
Ashraf, there's been much ado about electricity in the Johannesburg-Gauteng region, and I'm sure you know that well.
Yeah.
At the end, dissolving to resort to meters. And has that ever been considered for other provinces? Because in my view, having a meter works far more efficiently than having to go to the municipality to complain about whatever. And there's usually many complaints with regards to electricity. You'll be told, whatever comes to mind, they'll tell you, and they can't fathom that themselves. I lived on premises that were occupied by one person, and I had to move in after she moved out. But guess what? We had a bill, electricity, or I had a bill, electricity, where she had her own account number and I had mine, but the same address. And I kept saying...
Oh, I think we've just lost Lorraine. Okay, pretty about that, Lorraine. So I don't know. I mean, you're talking about prepaid, if I can understand you correctly, and if you're saying there's no prepaid in your region in Durban, I'm surprised at that. If anybody knows better, let me know. I agree that the advantage of prepaid is completely in your control. You don't have to worry about. They can't even cut you off because they won't. They can't, right? You just have to top it up all the time. The downside. It's not. There's a sense nowadays that it's actually as expensive, if not more, than what you would have done where you paid, 1 month in arrears. So that's what I know. But if anybody knows better, you can certainly let me know. Right, we've had a fascinating chat regarding the water story. So here's one. I disagree with the gentleman regarding from Anaqua. Water ought to be free. See the UNDRIP articles. We're talking about the goals 25 and 26. Indigenous people ought not to pay for their water. That is colonization system. He's peddling water capture, water insecurity and manipulation, subversion of state water defensive measure. I think you're being too hard on him. He simply had to provide an analysis of where we are. He's not the minister. He's not anything. He's providing an analysis, and the reality is everybody's charging. And if nobody charges, where do you think the money is going to come from to be able to pay for that? At the moment, they can't. The government can't support doctors. They can't support hospitals. They can't support schools for more teachers. Somebody has to pay for that. Okay, right. There's more. There's another comment on water.
Ashraf, hi. Flores here from the Western Cape, man. Every time I hear people struggling to get clean drinking water, I really feel so guilty. Ashraf, I live next to a fountain that runs directly from the mountain. Ice cold water. And there's a few outlets here in town who comes and collect water here, and they actually sell it to people. But yeah, I don't want to give away my location, but yeah, I'm fortunate. Right now, I just had a nice glass of ice cold water. Have a good bye.
Oh my goodness. I thought you were going to help the world. Now you don't want to help the world. You've made the point, you've given the solution, but you say, I'm not going to tell you where I am.
Good afternoon, Muzi Masinga here. I think the issue is not that we are using water at a high rate, like you were saying, 300 liters per capita. The issue is that the infrastructure does not match the population. You cannot expect to have the same infrastructure for a growing population. What they need to do is to increase the capacity. We know that South Africa is a water scarce country. So instead of us building reservoirs and building more dams, we just complain that people use water. People are supposed to use the water. What they need to do is increase the capacity that we have. Thank you very much.
I agree with you. I mean, even like yesterday said, please, can you cut down on water? Like how much? It's not like we're throwing the water away. Yes, there's always going to be one or two people abusing it. But generally, no, I think people use the water responsibly. They don't have water to give away. They don't have water. I mean, that's the truth. And the point that you make, that's why they have these sensors and stats that actually tells people where people are living. And they then plan. I think Pali Lekgotla always made the point. Utilize the planning and implement what the stats tells you to plan. If you don't do that, you will fail.
Captain, remember when the ANC played the race card with the DA to get rid of the DA?
They always do that, right? They play their race card to influence voters, and then they get rid of the DA, saying that they can't provide and service our people. Look at what's going on in Joburg now. Look at that city centre, the CBD, looking like a pigsty. Look, there's no water, there's no electricity, not even the robots are working. So how are the ANC providing for our people? They can't even do that. Panyazo Nsufi is useless, man.
Well, that's the Gauteng Premier. By the way, we chat to the Joburg Mayor, Dara Morero. He'll be my guest 4:10 Monday. So we'll talk about other things too, but this will come up. Gift in Mpumalanga. Go for it, Gift. Hi.
Afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Right. What's your point, Gift?
No, look, Ashraf, it's not a point to say, but I'd love to ask for your favor. I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I'm one of the grieving parents in relation to this food poisoning thing. So I'd love to urge or ask for SAFM to actually compile a database of all these parents that are grieving, all these parents that have lost their children as a result of this food poisoning. Because apparently, I think we as the parents are the ones who should act based on what has happened to us. Because nobody's saying a thing about it, not even the government.
Yeah, look, I tell you what, I'm so sorry as to what has happened. Let's see if I can get, maybe Keys again, Keys and Temba, just to make a note of this and see whether that can be followed up. But just help us with this. What happened with your child?
No, she just passed away, and apparently it was as a result of this food poisoning. So I'm still grieving. The year 2020. I still cannot move on.
Okay, I'm going to let you go only because the line's just becoming really worse, so we're battling to hear you. But you know what? Keys will make notes of your number. Let's see if we can follow that story up as well, right? Then we had that issue about the prepaid electricity.
How's it, Ashraf? Richard in Durban. I've got a prepaid meter at my place. It's done by a company called National Prepaid, and it works like a dream. It's fun. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for those good wishes. Well, I'm glad it works like a dream. So there you are, Lorraine, I think it was called in earlier on. Like, there we are. There is prepaid in the Durban region. I would have been surprised if there wasn't. Maybe just find out more about it, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Duduzile Zuma likes attention, but I'm not surprised. She has taken after her father. Who knows? Maybe it's a family thing. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Lesotho.
Peter, you already said she takes after like a father. Then you're saying maybe. Which one is it? Yes or no? Just saying, right? Here's another comment. Hi, Ashraf. Hello, brother. Thank you. The nice thing about the farm owner, about a farm owner, we have boreholes. And that's why I will keep asking the ANC government to continue providing black people with land, as it has done to my family. From Anonymous. I'm really not too sure what you mean, but the boreholes, I agree, those that have it, they're quite expensive. They could range from a minimum 100,000 to $250,000 rands, depending on where and how deep they have to go. And I don't have it, but I tell you what, those that do, yo, man, that is gold. And many people in the communities that I live in, the northern suburbs of Joburg, they openly open themselves up to say, please come and use our water. There are so many generous people. There really are. That's why when people talk down about South Africa, we have some brilliant people in our country. We really do.
Good afternoon, Bra Ashraf. This is Nkunzi from Kwatema. Bra Ashraf, Duduzile Zuma should not feel entitled to the MK party. That's not a family business. She must grow up and be a professional. Even in family businesses, they can appoint someone from outside as a CEO. Sometimes they need someone with experience, and skill. She mustn't take it personal. That's not a family business. It's politics.
She mustn't take it personally. Someone said go and try and talk to her. I mean, I don't know her, but someone just said try and talk to her. Okay, Baleka Mbete coming up after 5 o'clock. On the Friday we have this 1 hour chat with one person. It's very much journey, where they're going, something serious, something light. All of that you can join into. Let's get the news first. Here's Greg Host. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Reaction to bail denial in child pornography case and confirmation of KZN foot and mouth disease outbreak. Good day to you. The NGO Women and Men Against Child Abuse has welcomed the decision by the Randburg Magistrates Court in Gauteng to deny bail to Darren Wilkin and his girlfriend Tiona Mudley. The couple was arrested after an FBI-led investigation connected them with an estimated 10 million videos and images of child pornography. They face multiple charges, including money laundering and possession and distribution of child pornography, among others. Alex Talbot is from Women and Men Against Child Abuse.
For us as an advocacy organisation, it's a huge victory for children's rights. We need to keep in mind that this is one of the biggest crime syndicates with child sexual abuse material that we have had in South Africa, let alone in Africa on the continent. So it's really good that the magistrate considered all factors from the state to allow for them to be denied bail.
Government has vowed to unite and recognise the voice of the Khoi and San community. The Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, Willem-Nkosini Hlapisa, has opened the National Convention for Khoi San leaders in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg.
Why are we here? We want to have one voice for the Khoi and San community. Secondly, when we live here, we must ensure that we leave the doors open, that issues of the Khoi and San community will be engaged. And thirdly, this gathering must mark the process that will result to the full recognition of the Khoi and San community as the legitimate community in South Africa.
Multiple murderer Enoch Ndor will be sentenced next year. He's been found guilty of the murders of 7 family members by the High Court in Thohoyandou and Limpopo. He shot and killed them at Jimmy Jones Village on Christmas Day in 2021. Presiding Judge Tokomelani Shidada says the state has provided uncontested evidence to prove that the convict is guilty.
Accused also failed to discharge the onus to prove that he suffered a pathological incapacity on the day or the time he committed the offences he is charged with. I am therefore persuaded and convinced that the state presented uncontested evidence that proved the accused's guilt on all the 7 counts of murder he is charged with beyond reasonable doubt. To the extent necessary, I am compelled to pronounce a guilt verdict against the accused.
The KwaZulu-Natal Health Department's confirmed an outbreak of hand, foot and mouth disease at 9 learning facilities north of Durban. The number of infected children has since risen to 36. It's unrelated to foot and mouth disease that occurs among farm animals. The affected schools are in Phoenix, Greenwood Park and Umhlanga. Dries Liebenberg has more.
In a statement, the KwaZulu-Natal Health Department has called for calm after confirming the outbreak of hand, foot and mouth disease at 9 schools in the north of Durban. It says sick children should be sent home for the duration of the infection. Symptoms include fever, a sore throat, small blisters on the inside of the mouth, on the side of the tongue, palms and soles of the feet. Teachers are advised to keep windows open, encourage hand washing, avoiding the sharing of items among children, like utensils and toys, and regularly cleaning surfaces. I am Dries Liebenberg for SABC News in Durban.
A U.S. federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to temporarily block a foreign funding freeze that has been in place for weeks. The order temporarily blocks the administration from cancelling foreign aid contracts and awards that were in place before U.S. President Donald Trump took office. Show and Bryce Peace reports.
This is just the latest intervention by a federal judge to block or temporarily halt Trump's executive orders as part of his and Elon Musk's efforts to dismantle federal agencies, including the U.S. Agency for International Development, where work has all but come to a halt. The 90-day pause on foreign funding was to allow time for a review of their efficiency and alignment with the president's foreign policy objectives. The judge wrote that the government had not explained why a blanket suspension of all congressionally appropriated foreign aid was a rational precursor to reviewing programs. The White House has accused federal judges of being judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. Sherwin Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
The top story: women and men against child abusers welcome the decision by the Randburg Magistrates Court to deny bail to a man and his girlfriend. They were arrested after an FBI-led investigation connected them with an estimated 10 million videos and images of child pornography. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In sports this hour, Chite sets new mile record and 6 Chiefs players ruled out of cheaper clash. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. We start with Joburg's airport run, the R24 and R21 are being held by an earlier crash up by Voortrekker. I understand that's just being cleared. That traffic should start to move on. Collision up by Marlborough Drive on the N3 North, heavy passing Alex into that one. Crash on the Mike 1 South at Greyston, holding you up coming down from Marlborough Drive today. And if you're on the N1 through Midrand, fairly busy, but clearly through to Samran. And then you hit another wall of traffic between John Foster Drive and a broken down vehicle up by Garsfontein Road. Durban, some additional lane closures in today between Spaghetti Junction and Umgena Road, particularly northbound, very slow as you come up through Spaghetti up towards Westwood Mall territory. Still got the broken down vehicle on the N2 after Gateway. If you're driving in from the airport, that's heavy. A lot of traffic all over Umhlanga Rocks Drive, the M41 and the M4, both ways very slow going today. And a crash on your way out to Phoenix and Verulam. It's on the M41 just before the Trade Centre exit. A crash at Hillcrest on the M13 causing a delay for traffic from Kloof, just from the top of Fields Hill. In Cape Town, this will surprise you. The N2 out of town, some roadworks at Muway in front of Khayelitsha, and the backlog is extreme. It's all the way through to Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
'Cause I'm your lady.
On this special day of love, SAFM wishes you all a happy Valentine's Day. Whether you're celebrating with someone special or embracing self-love, let's make today a day of kindness, joy, and connection. Happy Valentine's Day from all of us at SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, with me, KG Mweketi.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so every Friday we have this fireside chat where we speak to someone of prominence and we chill with them for 45 minutes or so, right? Today my guest is Baleka Mbete. She'll join us shortly, but in the meantime, it just gives me a chance to play some of your comments and one issue around the water story.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think the water problem has got to do with the water that Johannesburg is losing because of these sewer spillages. All the rivers and the streams in Johannesburg, the whole of Gauteng, are full of sewer, and those rivers are flowing heavily of sewer. Bafana, Kumal, and Memel.
Thanks, Bafana. But yes, I mean, the problem is the sewer problem or the sewerage problem is an infrastructure problem where, again, if your infrastructure collapses and you don't invest in upgrading it, then you're going to have a problem. So now you're paying double, in effect, as a city or a council or a community. So it's very, very costly. They've just got to get it right.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'd just like to talk about this thing of the SNDF. whereby everybody's talking so loud about they should come home and so on. So I think like South Africans are talking too much. They must just take a time to understand how those things work, and they must understand that the matter of security and intelligence in this country, it doesn't concern them. It's a matter of state. So sometimes you should just stay quiet and see what is happening. They can't just want to talk about soldiers should come home and whatever. That is beyond their opinion. Thank you, Jezaveli.
Well, you may be right. People always have opinions, but I get what you're saying. Some things just can't be done. You can't find answers where there's nothing, right? So, by the way, there's just a connectivity issue with my guest, Baleka Mbete. It just means that until we connect with her, there's a rare opportunity for you to either call in, but you need to do it ASAP, 086 000 2032, or send us a text or a voice note. You must do it like right away. 0614 104 107. Stick with the theme. What for you has been the biggest story that's moved the national pulse all week? I can think of like 5, man.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Great show as always. So the water problem in Johannesburg, it stems down to people being appointed on affirmative action basis. There's people being appointed and people being put into positions, not because they have the skill set, but because of cadre employment. And this is the outcome of affirmative action. And it is evident that there are engineers and people who had the know-how and understand how this whole process works. If we're going to continue just appointing people because of the color of their skin, I'm afraid this problem is not going to be solved. We see in Cape Town and everywhere else that people are appointed because of the skills and because of the experience. So let's do that, and I'm sure that's part of the solution. William here from Cape Town.
Well, thanks for that, William. I mean, it certainly gets me thinking. I'm going to disagree about the affirmative action because it suggests automatically that affirmative action means, compromised appointments. I don't think that's the case. I would agree with you about the cadre or cadre appointments. There's been far too many politically motivated appointments in the country. So appointments are made of people who are close to, the political leadership, and they're not good enough. And we find there's a problem with that. Now I'd like to take more calls, but I can't do that because now we finally do have Baleka Mbete connected with us, and we'll get to her right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get to the fireside chat, the Friday fireside chat. My guest today is Baleka Mbete. Good to connect with you when you're live at the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, for inviting me. I suspect you might be around the same age group as I. Otherwise, I wouldn't be allowing you to call me by name.
Well, there you are.
Mambalega is what I should be called at this point.
Yeah. So what would you prefer? I mean, I was going to ask you in terms of before. Because before, what I'm saying, before when you were in Parliament, it would be Deputy President. It would actually be the Honourable, as everybody else does. But your whole position has changed now, right?
Yes, I'm now full-time a grandmother, a mother, a leader in civil society spaces.
How are you managing with that? Those changes now. It's a good few years now, isn't it?
How am I managing? Is that there isn't enough time to do all the things that have to be done, as I've discovered after the rumor that I am retired, which I am still trying to prove correct, because according to people who live with me, they say I seem to be busier now than before.
So this rumor that you have retired, would that be because they're basing it on the basis of you holding public office and you're not there? But are you, besides spending time at home and being this grandmother too, are you holding any formal positions, office now?
I'm not holding formal positions. I am doing the work that makes you a leader in actual real life activity. So I'm running an office that has my foundation as well as the National Liberation Heritage Institute of South Africa, which is the second one is the one under which I continue the work of preservation of the records and the archives and the stories of the liberation struggle.
Well, we must certainly talk more about that too. How is that going? I mean, in terms of preserving, because I think history and heritage is critically important, and often people take it for granted when people are living. It's like, we'll worry about this some other time, and that history just goes away. So how far are you down the line with that?
The difficulty is that none of the work we do has been funded so far by any South Africans that I can talk a lot about. So we only have managed to really register some critical work in terms of signing of memoranda of understanding with institutions with whom we are interacting and looking now at the digitization of the archives that exist in different universities and other institutions around the country. So we are making slow progress because we also don't have paid people. We only rely on volunteers, people who volunteer their time as lawyers. We have Advocate Nobuhle Mazolo, who does a lot of good work ensuring that this work is done, and the MOU necessary to sign between us as NALISA and different institutions. For instance, we signed very early on with the America's Voices Against Apartheid, who are an organization of former anti-apartheid activists who had committed to continue keeping an eye on the work we do post the democratic dispensation coming into being. So they continue to be in touch with us, seeing what else we can do together now that we are now in the country. But what's more important are the institutions in South Africa, the National Heritage Council, the UJ, the ANC, because we use those archives, isn't it? The archives of these different organizations, for instance, in terms of the political organizations, the ANC, the PAC, the BCMU, the AZAPO, and also individual leaders who came from some of the smaller participants in the struggle time. So all of those records, it's a very slow, difficult process because you've got to pay very careful attention to the details of what you are dealing with.
Understandably
and
so, yeah.
we don't have paid people who run our organization full time. So that's the biggest thing I want to start with in sharing with you what we've been doing in the past 5 years as a non-partisan organization that is registered, with the master of the court. So we are a registered entity having the trustees of the ANC, PAC, and Black consciousness backgrounds.
Okay, good to confirm, clear that up. What about your foundation? What's the foundation called, and what does that serve?
The foundation is BMF, Magambete Foundation. not well known because we are working quietly in rural spaces. We have been involved for a few years now in the district called Alfred Nzo district, where we are starting what will become a healing sanctuary. I want to promise you that it's going to be a place you want to come to, Ashraf, when it exists. But so far, it's only a dream because we are still fundraising.
Okay, it always does start with a dream, isn't it? Let's reflect on other things. When your position and really you're you're very much a part of the ANC, but when your position is the deputy president of the country and then the speaker of the National Assembly, when all that ended, right? What did you feel? I mean, share some of your emotions.
I didn't have time to reflect on how I felt because there was just always something to do. So as I say to you, for me, it's a rumor, this retirement thing. I've never had enough time, to actually think about, except for when I was not well. Because at the end of the term, I actually, I think it was touch and go, because I was actually on my way to a door-to-door somewhere an hour out of Cape Town. And doctors said, no, in fact, you have to stay in hospital overnight because we've got to control a number of things going wrong in your body, in your system. And it's this thing of not resting, which is an unfortunate bad habit of people, who come from where I come from. So I never had time. So I came home after that, after the elections had passed, and just stayed home and in bed enough to recuperate, and then got on the road and got busy with the work that had to be done.
Sort of hustling once again in a very different way. But having said that, when you see, for example, the State of the Nation address as it was last week, right? Surely you can't help but remind yourself that, you know what, I used to sit in that hot seat for many years. I mean, I would think the same if I was in that position. Surely it has to.
Every year I go there, Ashraf.
Yeah,
remember?
But when you're there, you must.
And I felt very good on Thursday last week. Being there, it went very smoothly, and I thought it worked. That some people felt the pinch of not getting their salaries for 3 months. I hope is what got to them. For them to sober up and let us have a smooth State of the Nation address without disruption. Otherwise, it's great to see a lot of people again, because you don't see people. You are always either in the office or at home, working from home, reading, writing, or, doing all manner of things all over, wherever you get taken by the work that you have to do.
What do you feel? Yeah. What do you feel about, often in recent weeks, when we speak about education, there's no budgets. When we speak about health doctors' appointments, there's no budgets. When it talks about healthcare in the hospitals, there's no budgets. And we can go on and on about many other things. Then when people come back and say, like, you know what, do we really need a fancy State of the Nation address where everybody comes with their fancy outfits and it's costing the state money? Why don't we just get rid of all of that? That means have the address because we need to do the address, but we don't need all that fancy stuff, and let's save money.
I think, Ashraf, that we have entered a period that I believe is giving us another chance. We've just finished last year of reflections, a series of reflections, talking, engaging about the past 3 decades, right? And that was a good opportunity for, by the end of the year, us being sober, us being honest about things that hadn't worked well, where we have slipped up and mistakes that had been done and all of that. And we then went to elections. Elections themselves were a testament, were a statement about how our people feel about the areas of gaps and mistakes and neglect and perhaps things that went very grossly wrong. And therefore, I think now the period we've entered is a period of starting afresh. It was a first state of the nation under the current GNU arrangement. And I think, having also attended one time a summit where we had people coming from different sectors in Cape Town, convened by the Deputy President, looking at what other countries had done when things hadn't worked well for them for a long time, and they were rethinking, they went back to the drawing board and they were saying, what can we do better? How can we work differently? And I think while it is on some aspects upsetting that we are where we are now with the GNU in the way it is composed, we are not all together. For instance, in the family I come from, that is politically, the political family at the alliance level, we're not all happy that we are where we are, in particular because of perhaps how we handled things. Because sometimes things go wrong only in the detail of how you handle things, how you engage all sectors and all communities and age groups and permutations of, the multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional differences we always have, even in a family.
Now, I mean, you know that obviously the GNU only existed, as you've alluded to, because of the fact that we've had a situation now where the ruling party that's dominated our politics since 1994 has dropped below that 50% threshold. So we know that, right? But as part of that GNU arrangement, I mean, there's a whole range of parties, but the two that stands out is the ANC and the DA. And there's not a day that we don't get people calling in, and I have a sense that if you talk about your family disagreements, that many may accuse, and they have accused the ANC of effectively selling out the struggle by going into alliance with the DA. What do you feel about that?
I don't think it's about the DA per se. I do know that within the DA themselves, there's a difference of opinion and attitude and approach about this arrangement. There are those who feel it has to be made to work in the best considerations for South Africans and society broadly. There are those who see it as an opportunity to kill the ANC, to weaken the ANC, and are never quiet in the background, influencing things so that they make things look like the ANC sold out and agreed with the DA to sell out and to actually favor the DA. I don't think that's necessarily what the GNU is. What I believe the GNU is, what I am told by my comrades, my leaders, that they talked to everybody, and I do believe that they did. I do not agree with how the alliance part of the consultations and the engagements were handled, because I think that is a big weakness we have to correct, especially since our late Deputy Secretary General, Comrade J.C. Duarte, whom I know used to be meticulous in ensuring that the Alliance Secretariat worked all the time to ensure that we were keeping together. We were seeing things together at the same time, all the time, analyzing and ensuring we convene alliance structures and engage on things internally within the alliance before we go out there. I don't think we've kept the focus as much as Comrade J.C. Duarte used to when she ran full-time the secretariat from Luthuli House of the ANC on behalf of ensuring that we keep the Alliance Secretariat, keeping the Alliance Political Council on board on all matters we were managing together when we are working on the whole political project of
Okay.
South Africa.
Well, that's a good point
But
to
I
note,
don't
yeah.
agree. But I don't agree that this GNU amounts to the ANC and DA fooling everybody else. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we've got to give it a chance.
All right. Well, and I suppose the country's given it a chance and is doing so even now. What we'll do is in fact, we're gonna break just for the moment with the news headlines. Then we'll talk about other things, including the journey that you've taken, that the Baleka Embedded journey from where it started to how you landed up where you are right now. But let's get the news headlines. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The Basic Education Minister says the department remains concerned about the uptake of science and maths. Women and Men Against Child Abuse has welcomed a court decision to deny bail to a man and his girlfriend arrested after an investigation connected them to an estimated 10 million videos and images of child pornography. And European powers have insisted that both they and Ukraine are part of any future peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Start with an update on the R21 in front of OR Tambo International Airport in Joburg. It's a pedestrian down, been there for quite some time. The R21 North coming up from Jet Park and the R24 towards the airport to merge into that R21. Both of those routes very heavy. Crash on the N3 North at Marlborough Drive. Traffic queuing back past Alex into Edenvale. And a smash on the Wycon South at Grayston. Now that's heavy on the highway coming down into Sandton from Woodmead. And it's also causing extra delays getting out of Sandton on Grayston Drive towards the Wycon Highway. Lights are out on Main and Vidcop, and a big backlog that side of Fourways. Main, Lone Hill Boulevard's out. Main, Zinnia, and Main at the R55. How about that, eh? Bryson through to Kyalami. You'll be stopping and starting. The N1 North, a breakdown at Carsfontein. That stays slow from as far back as Boerta Avenue. Durban's had a very busy day. We're just getting reports of a shooting incident involving a couple of taxi drivers at the Isipingo taxi rank. That's going to cause some delays locally. The M4 still queuing up as you turn off the N2 into the Merebank area. The M4 very heavy both ways around sort of Blue Lagoon and Umhlanga, and also the M41 out towards Phoenix. That crash before you get to Trade Centre still causing some delays. Cape Town Baden-Powell leaving Muizenberg all of a sudden very heavy out to Strandfontein Road, and roadworks in front of Khayelitsha on the N2 causing a massive backlog coming out of town. The queues from the M5 highway, R300 south to get into that N2 pushes a heavy queue back towards Cales River. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, let's run athletics. When last have we spoken about athletics? The Olympic Games, I think.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about the athletics in a while, but Tsepo Chite has set a new South African national short track mile record with an outstanding time of 3 minutes 54.10 seconds at the World Athletics Indoor Tour in France. The 28-year-old finished fifth, surpassing his previous personal best of 3 minutes and 54 seconds. Now, Olympic 800-meter finalist Prudence Schodiso finished second, and she clocked 1 minute and 59 seconds, while SA sprint star Akani Simbini will make his international indoor debut when he lines up in the 60-meter race in Berlin tonight. In football, Nazruddin Nabi says that Kaizer Chiefs are looking to qualify for Continental Club football at the end of the season, and one of the best way to do this is for Amakosi to win the Nedbank Cup title. Talking about the Nedbank Cup, Amakosi face Chippa United in the round of 16 tomorrow, and they'll be without a number of their players, including Captain Yusuf Mott, who is serving suspensions, Bongiseni Mtetwa, Dylan Solomons, Edmilson Dove, and Wandile Duba and Ashley Dupria, who are still out on injury. However, Nabi believes that the team can achieve a lot only if it remains consistent.
Je pense que au niveau des résultats, même si on est sur un projet, on aurait pu faire beaucoup mieux que ce qu'on a fait parce que nous estimons avoir raté des points.
In terms of results, we believe that we should be, or we could have done better. We feel that there are points that we dropped, and that was in our hands, that we could have won more points until now.
Elsewhere, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says that defender Manuel Akanji will be out of action for 8 to 10 weeks with a muscular injury that will require surgery. The 29-year-old sustained the injury during the Champions League clash against Real Madrid. Then in rugby, the Vodacom Bulls have made changes to their side ahead of the United Rugby Challenge match against the Sharks at Loftus. Cameron Hanekom is rested with Nizam Khan named at the back of scrum. Marco van Staden replaces Marcel Coetzee at open side flank, while Reinhard Ludwig remains at blind side and will lead the team. In the other change of the pack, Ruan Vermaak returns to the second row, and the Bulls are currently third on the URC log, 5 points ahead of fourth placed Sharks. In cricket, the ICC have increased the prize money of the Champions Trophy starting in Pakistan next week. The winners of the tournament are set to pocket over $2.24 million, around 40 million rand, while the runners-up bank $1.12 million. That's around 20.7 million rand. And in terms of the Proteas relevancy, each group stage win at the Champions Trophy will guarantee a sum of $34,000. That's around $628,000. That's it. It is a wrap from my side.
What's your plans for the weekend? There's the work plans and there's the supporter, like the sporting fan.
I think I'm going to be a supporter.
Okay.
Until next week, I'm back to work.
Okay. Anything you're looking out for in particular?
Nothing's particular,
All right.
but I'll definitely be watching the Nedbank Cup clashes.
Of course, yeah. There's a whole lot of knockout games there, and there's a Tottenham Man United game, which I think is important, but a lot of knockout games here. And there's nothing that I'm really keeping my eye on besides those things. I've got a lot of family functions that are taking place. As you know, my sister's still here from Canada, so we'll spend lots of time around that. I'm sure about it. That's
Nice.
my weekend.
And
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing how Akani Simbini is going to run tonight.
Ah, you're back to athletics once again.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Absolutely right. You better say your goodbyes. Well, Phineas is insisting. He wants to hear it.
All right, then. Ke nna tumeng kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bahaga have a different game plan to return to Hampatele with happy faces. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC this Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
So Ever stood in front of the fridge hoping for a quick lunch decision, only to find, well, nothing. So you just order what you had yesterday. Well, getting your car covered online with Santam is faster than deciding what to have for lunch. It really only takes 2 seconds. Time it. To switch, visit santam.co.za. Santam, this is freedom.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, we've still got Baleka and Mbete with us for the next 15, well up to 6 o'clock, in fact, right? But let's get to the economic news. As always, Jimmy Moyaha. No show today at 6, I know, but what are the numbers like?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Numbers are looking very positive. We're closing out the day in positive territory on the equity side of it. The rand is looking stronger. Commodities prices are a little weaker, but we will take the overall win. If we look at international markets, the Hang Seng surprising to the upside again, up 3.5% in today's trade. UK markets, or European markets rather, were a bit of a mixed bag with the CAC 40 in France, the only markets to finish in the green. That was up about 0.5%. The DAX in Germany were down 0.25% each. If we look at the Nasdaq at the moment, it's up about 0.25%, with the S&P up about 0.1%. Our own local markets benefited largely from that positivity in Asian markets. If we look at industrial stocks, they were up 2.1% on the day's trade, and in line with that was the fact that Naspers hit new all-time highs today. The first time the share price touched 4,600 Rand a share. So that was one of the new 52-week highs that we saw from some of our local markets. The others were the likes of Goldfields, Anglo Gold, Prosus, Richmond, all hitting new new 52-week highs, whilst the likes of Oslo Mittal hit new 52-week lows. Resource counters were up about 0.2%, and the financial stocks were down about 0.1%. But overall, the all share was up 4%. The top 40 was up 1.1%. As I said, the rand was also stronger against the dollar, currently at about 18.34. At some point, we were above 18.50 this week alone. So we're about 0.75% stronger in the last session as well. And if we look at the euro, 1 euro will cost you 19.26, about 0.33% stronger there. 1 Australian dollar 11.66. 1 British pound, 22.15, still above some certain levels there. If we look at the price of a Bitcoin, that's $96,500 a coin at the moment, or around 1.7 million Rand because of the stronger Rand. Those commodities, before we go, a quick look at those. Brent crude still $75 a barrel. Platinum and palladium still above $1,000 an ounce in each case, but coming off quite a bit today. The gold price was a bit lower as well. It was about 1% lower a little while ago, but is now back above $2,900 a fine ounce. It was just below $2,900 before you and I started this conversation, but at some point it was above $2,910. So we take the win that is equity markets finishing off the week in positive territory. We go into next week knowing that we've got our budget speech on Wednesday. All eyes are going to be on some of those announcements by our finance minister and how the markets will react towards that. We know we've also got, coming up later this month, we've got the decision from the Financial Action Task Force around our grey listing status. So I've got a lot to keep an eye on going into next week and for the rest of the month. But for now, we take the win that is going into the weekend, and we close out the weekend on a high. Back to you, Ashraf.
Perfect. You enjoy your on the high weekend, Jimmy Moyaha. Thanks for that. We'll connect on Monday. We owe each other a coffee, but that's another conversation, maybe after the budget speech. Absolutely right. Okay, now what we'll do next up, we continue with the fireside chat with my guest, Baleka Mbete, the former Deputy President and the former Speaker at the National Assembly.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
And we'll continue chatting all the way up to 6 o'clock. Here's a comment, Ashraf. Love the way you like to say, isn't it? Love your show, my good sir, always listening. Do I really say that, isn't it? And yet at home, often my family says, isn't. And they just leave the word it out. Like, it's cold, isn't? Something along that line. Anyway, let's get back to Baleka Mbete, the former Deputy President, former Speaker of the National Assembly. Do you have like strange phrases that you use? And as you've just heard the caller or the listeners saying about me and isn't it? Do you have strange words that you use and people admire or laugh about it? You're laughing now. You're laughing now.
Well, I'm laughing because, there are words we just get so used to saying in a particular way without thinking. And we don't realize that we are sounding a particular way and people one day point it out.
Yeah, you're right. And it's not like it's right or wrong. They just pick it up to say you use these words more often than others. I mean, absolutely. Okay, well, if you remember a word that you use very often, that you just do it anyway, just tell me in the few minutes we have remaining, right? Let's go to where it all started. So, I mean, you've had an amazing, life, a life of struggle, in the struggle, and then huge leadership positions within the country, for the country. But where did it all start for you?
It started in my youth, when I was a young woman growing up in the townships, like every township girl all over South Africa. And when I was around my 20s, just getting together in KwaMashu, getting to be conscious that something was not right in our society. And I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of stories about that issue. And we formed a KwaMashu youth organization. And you know, you don't know until one day you think back. Then you realize what influenced you over time in your growing up, in your childhood. Then I remembered, you know, images of my own mother in the 50s. And that time, I mean, I was less than 10 years old. And then, of course, subsequently, I was to know that my father was involved somehow. But there are those influences that are not spoken about, but which influence you without you actually hearing anybody explaining that this is what is happening.
And what
So
are
that's
they? I mean,
where it started.
Yeah. So can you share some of those influences?
The images of my mother in the 50s, in a period which I now, as an adult, myself being a feminist, being involved in actual organization in the Women's League of the ANC and the women's movement, I still continue being preoccupied with issues of women and in particular rural women, because that's where poverty hits them most, and they are the worst victims of that poverty, being right at the bottom and having to make do with whatever is existing or even non-existent, but somehow they make their families survive, you know. So I have had that life, and I realized that it was the influences of seeing my mother with other women coming together. Now I know that these were the campaigns of the times, the campaigns against the beer halls, which were being used by apartheid South Africa at the time. Really targeting women's roles in society, because it's women in communities who brew the local beer, the traditional beer.
Okay.
So when now the system starts making these beer halls, the places where our husbands, instead of coming home, go there every day after work to go and spend money, the little money that our families then have to survive on. It really became something that was a confrontation on the life of the family, and the women rose up in that time around that specific issue.
Was there a moment, you know, even as a young girl growing up, right, that you realized that whatever you saw was an injustice, and it was an injustice on one part of the population of the country and not another, if you get my point? Like, you saw an injustice that you know applied to your community at that time in your own world.
It's actually as a teenager, start having to go to town, take the train on a Saturday morning to go and get the vegetables from the Indian market in town, come back to KwaMashu, the township where my family lived, that you start picking up those maybe color issues as you go in and out of shops selling either the vegetables there at the Indian market or in the shops where I would go and get things as a teenager. I've always liked to look okay. So I would be going into a shop looking for something, and I would sense this attitude, this dismissive, undermining attitude from a white person behind the counter. So it is then that I started to really experience it and realize that something is not right in this world, just how you were experiencing life. But there would also be issues of experiencing being a young woman in a sexist society. When you step out of home, you just know you are getting into the battleground out there.
Okay,
because you know, it's men who are going to be having the assumption that you are for them to do as they please or to speak to as they please. Or I mean, I remember somebody even saying to me, no, you should go away, you're this thin thing. I'm thin. So now that becomes, you know, something for him to use to insult me, that I'm not responding warmly to him, to his unwanted attention. So it's those little things. And when you get to church, you realize that it's the women who are somehow heavy with emotional burdens and crying and coming forward, needing the priests to pray for them and all that. So society, the socialization, just you stepping out of home, you come across the reality out there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
In society.
I want to touch on just now about yourself and your brother. I think it was both landed up in prison in a short period of each other, but we'll do that right after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bakhaga have a different game plan to return to Hamphahlele with happy faces.
This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16.
Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC this Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
All right, we got about 10 minutes. In fact, slightly less chatting to Baleka Mbete. You know the name, former deputy president, former speaker of the National Assembly. But we're getting into more just chatty mode now. But one of the things that stood out just very quickly before we get on to other things is how your brother was imprisoned, right, out of protesting against the apartheid atrocities, and then very shortly thereafter you followed. But interestingly enough, there's a story about him giving you a message while in prison that led you leaving the country. Tell us about that.
No, it's not a question of me following him. We separately, differently, but perhaps at the same time or sometimes in the same spaces, belong to the same activities because we were in the same township, in the same home. He then went to Teflop, and that's where he got imprisoned while away there. Mm-hmm. So we got a message that he had been collected along other students, and a friend of his who came from the KZN. We were living in KwaMashu in Durban at the time. What's his name? He's a businessman running Tebe. Mm-hmm. I must remember his name. Oh, Ashraf.
It'll come just now, right? So yeah.
So while they were here in number 4, here in Johannesburg, mm-hmm. at the time, discussed the activities out there. And I was teaching in KwaMashu at Sibonelo High School at the time. So they got, to a decision and an understanding that it was necessary for me to leave the country. I had been going in and out, mm-hmm. questioning security police, all that embarrassment at school. You can imagine being at school teaching and then the police coming and collecting you, and you going away and all that. So it was under that kind of situation that they had the opportunity to analyze together, being a few of them inside there, and sending a message that they thought it was a wise move for me to leave, not to stay, especially because I had babies.
Of course.
And what was not advisable was for me, something to happen to me wrong when I have babies. I'm a mother, So I left, and I left my babies. And the babies, of course, followed me to Swaziland.
Okay, and that's another whole story completely. I'll move on to other things now, right? What about, I mean, you've met lots of people in your life, right? And lots of people would like to meet you. But is there one, person that you haven't yet met that you'd love to share a seat at the table with?
Well, he's now gone. I used to really admire my hero, Castro.
Okay.
The late President Castro, Fidel Castro. He's gone from this earth. I used to really admire that comrade and felt that he had done a lot for humanity, for humankind. There are many people I admire, of course, women. There's a woman who's now a minister in Senegal.
Right.
Of Foreign Affairs. And I did meet her some decades back. What's her name now? Oh, God.
Okay. Hopefully you'll get the name before
She's
we
a
end the show.
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Minister of Foreign
as
Affairs.
well
And
as-
we'll all start Googling it.
Her portfolio combines foreign affairs with something else.
Okay, got that. Right. Well, hopefully, if you remember, you can tell us. Is there a young South African you'd like to give a shout out to? Someone that impresses you, a young South African?
Guguletu, the economist. I like her.
Mfupi.
I like her combination of a girl that sounds like she went to what people would call a Model C product, but with Ubuntu combined in the same personality. So I like a child who comes out being something I recognize, because too many of our kids are trying to be what we are not.
Okay, interesting. I chatted to her yesterday, just ironically, just so that you know, right? Is there, what about a book? I mean, a book. Have you? Is there a book that you'd recommend that we must read?
Yes, I read a few books at the same time, all the time. So there is one small book which I doubt you will easily find. It was written by a comrade, Nombi Flatela, from Northern Cape. And the title is My Life, My Race, My Destination. And what I liked about it was it's a life that resonated with what I know, what I've lived through, and what also still continues as challenges in a life we are still trying to fix for the country, for our people, for society, using among machinery and things that we use, the organizations that we belong to. Because we belong to political organizations that have enabled us to do things in the struggle. And here's a woman who works very hard, really, and I like the fact that she's a creative, she's a political being, she's a hard worker, she's a feminist in the sense that she believes in, for instance, her mother struggled and lived through a difficult marriage, but brought them up very well.
Right. So we've got 2 minutes left, incredibly. So I'm gonna rush through these now very quickly. I mean, we think we know what it is, but what would be your purpose if you think about what is your life purpose? It's what?
Let me just say I'm a heritage child. I was born on Heritage Day. I turned 75 this past Heritage Day. I find my life continues to be steeped in heritage sector issues.
Okay.
I'm preoccupied with issues of arts, culture, heritage matters of our people, who we are, how we must continue to assert our right to express who we are, our identity, our African spirituality, including.
Okay, a point well made, right? Is there a quote, a good inspirational quote that you find you often use because you just love it?
I think the quote that comes to mind is what Charlotte Maxeke said to us all. And I will paraphrase it because I'm not quoting it, looking
All
at
right.
it
Very
verbatim.
quickly, we got 45 seconds. Yeah, very quickly.
She said to us, if you rise, bring that one who is lower down with you.
Yeah.
When you are up there, bring somebody else up. So let's look at those women low down, especially in rural, poverty-stricken situations, continuously having no toilets to this day, 30 years after our democracy.
I think Bonang Mohale had a book titled Lift As You Rise, which probably would mean the same thing. I'm sure about that, right?
Yes,
Let's
it
end
is.
with this. Your time's up, unfortunately. How would you like to be remembered?
As the one who kept on keeping on.
You kept on keeping on, and so you do that even now, isn't it?
I keep on keeping on.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been fascinating having a chat with you about and being reminded about the need to keep on keeping on. So you inspire us. I mean, that's a good quote in its own right? So wonderful to talk to you, and long may you enjoy at your age with the grandchildren, but very importantly, that point that you made about investing in heritage and inspiring all of us to invest in heritage as well. So thank you for your time and being...
Thank you very much, Ashraf,
Yes.
for the opportunity, and thanks to South Africans for being there and still listening to us. Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
they certainly do. There we are. Baleka Mbete, the former Deputy President, former Speaker of the National Assembly. That's the Friday Fireside Chat. We'll do another one next week, Friday. Right now, Greg Host is in the hot seat. It's time for the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Have a great weekend. In this news update, concern over uptake of science and maths in school and reaction to bail denial and child pornography case. Good evening. The Basic Education Minister, Sifio Gahube, says the department remains concerned about the uptake of science and maths. Senior officials from the department appeared before Parliament's Portfolio Committee to analyse last year's matric results. The minister says the department is looking at ways to encourage more learners from a younger age to take up subjects related to science, technology, engineering and maths.
But one of the things that we need to do is really